Good evening. It being on or after 7 o'clock, I'm going to open up the August 18th meeting of the Georgetown Conservation Commission. And this evening, we have some business to deal with, and we have 5 hearings on the agenda. Some of them may be continued at the request of the applicants, but it being on or after 7 o'clock, I'm going to reopen the first hearing, and that is Chaplain Hills Road, Brook Street, and Central Street, GCC 2015-13, and that's the delineation, confirmation of resources on the property. And it's my understanding that the applicant has requested a continuation on this?
That's correct.
I don't want to delve into any significant discussion here, but any updates at all?
At this point, we're waiting for a check for the third-party review to be started. I put out an email just asking what the status was, and he said, please continue at this meeting, and they'll be in at the next meeting.
Okay.
I don't know what that means, but he said he'll be here. You know, hopefully that's with the check, and so we can move things along.
Do we have any abutters to Chaplain Hill?
Do we have any plans at all of it? They haven't sent us any.
We have a site plan showing the entire property
Okay.
and all the resources that they've identified. So
Okay.
pretty much it's their opinion of what's on the property.
Okay.
The point of the third-party review is to confirm what's on the
Right,
property.
I understand, yeah.
So at this point, we have a full site plan showing every single wetland flag on the entire property.
And we'd want to have that third-party review prior to October 15, or if it's going to happen.
It has to happen before that, you know, the 15th. So then, and then it would have to wait again to the spring. If you keep in mind, this came in
Yes.
originally last
That's
fall,
what happened, yeah.
and it got bounced to the
Right,
spring.
actually,
If
almost a
they
year
push
ago.
this, if they push this too much, they're gonna miss the next window.
That's what I'm thinking, right?
So they haven't done it at all. We're still waiting to
We've
be
been
able
in-
to pay for the third
Correct.
party.
We've been in
And
holding
is
pattern.
Jillian doing it?
Yep, that's who has the estimate.
And obviously, we have the unique drought situation as well, so. So, nothing further. I will, do we have a continuation date? I entertain a motion to continue this.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue Chaplain Hill Road, Brook Street, Central Street, until September 15 at
7:30?
7:30.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to continue the NRAD hearing for Chapel Hill Road to September 15th at 7:30. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, all abstaining. Motion carries. All right. And it being on or after 7:05, I'm going to reopen an ANRAD for 66 Parish Road, GCC 2016-09, and that's also a wetlands delineation. And as I understand, we've been asked to continue this as well,
Correct.
and the applicant is not here. Any further updates?
They hit, so typically how this works is the line is at one point, Jillian goes out and inspects it, and will readjust. I've seen flags moved, 10, 15 feet. Sometimes they get smaller. They identified an area where they were really disagreeing on a fairly large area that most likely really impacts the project. So they've been going back and forth on that one area as far as trying to find different ways of evaluating the soil. They actually sent the soil out to get analyzed to kind of get a more analytical approach versus, a field investigation. So they've been going back and forth on that. Bottom line is, the review's not done yet. I think they're getting really, really close. By the next meeting, we should have a plan that the commission can, really look at and consider approving or not. So, kind of just looking for a month continuation on that one
Is
also.
there any butters to Parish Road? Noting none. And I'll entertain a motion to continue Parish Road.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue 66 Parish Road until September 15th at
7:45?
7:45.
Second.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to continue the Parish Road hearing to September 15th at 7:45. Is there any further discussion? Is September 15th going to be adequate for these folks? Because it seems to be...
I think all the field work is done. It's really Jillian she's on vacation right now. I think it's her sitting down and just writing her memo up based on everything. I think that should be enough time.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining. And it being on or after 7:10, I'm going to open up a new notice of intent for 7 Lake Avenue, GCC 2016-14, construction of a new driveway, alterations to existing residence, removal of an impervious walkway, and the removal of large trees on site, installation of a private dock. If I could have the applicant and a consultant, and if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
My name's Tom Hamlin, this is Dennis Quintal, who is the engineer for the project. I've been in town all my life, and I was on the Conservation Commission back in the 80s when we went from the 50 to the 100-foot buffer zone. And we're looking to downsize. We've outgrown our house over here on Central Street, and we bought 7 Lake Avenue to eventually retire to. We plan to renovate it and retire there.
And could you hand the green cards in if you wouldn't mind? Thank you.
Sorry?
Thank you, sir.
Green cards, thanks.
Did we have a full pond?
And this is one of these where we have to vote. It doesn't look like we have a full pond. So the commission has to vote based on what is the work is proposed, whether we want to grant a waiver to waive the requirement of a full pond notification on the green cards.
Can we do that later?
So I was just gonna say, sometimes
No,
it's
you
hard.
can't. It's gotta be done right
Yeah,
away.
so I think sometimes it's hard to do it if you don't really know what the project's, what they're
Exactly.
proposing.
But you can't discuss the project
but-
without the people.
I can give a very, very quick, like, 2-second overview of what they're proposing, and that might help, no discussion, just describe what they're doing, and that will help you determine whether you waive it or not. So, new dock with a walkway leading out to it. New driveway leading into the back of the property outside of the Concom's jurisdiction for a new garage. The only real buffer encroachment is the first roughly 60, 70 feet of that driveway. Some tree removal in front of the house that's within the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction. Those are the only visible changes that potentially could be impacted to people across the pond. The garage technically is behind the existing garage, and it's outside of the Concom's jurisdiction. So I don't think that would really be
The
even.
tree cutting is,
Front of the property,
It's within the buffer, huh?
the 50 to 70, most of them within the 50 to 75.
So it would be mostly the dock that would be of any concern to anybody on the pond. Maybe.
Yeah, and we don't typically notify around the pond for a dock. It's usually, the only time I've historically seen it is like a new house that was pretty much right in the front edge. Now, one of the new houses we had that was set back had a tree line that kind of blocked most of the view. So, I mean, I don't see anything here, minus the tree cutting is probably the only thing that would be visibly noticed to someone across the pond,
There'd be no discussion.
so.
so what's the commission's pleasure?
I think bearing in mind that we've had tree issues around the pond, that it might be prudent to notify around the pond.
Kind of issues.
We've had tree cutting issues around the
A lot
pond,
of enforcement.
Within
under enforcement.
Actually, that's actually the reason primarily we actually put that in the regulations, because of, people taking a treed lot on the water and, cutting a lot of the significant trees, and then all of a sudden people's, vista view is significantly changed. They look out their deck and it's like, what happened?
Is there room for a compromise in that? Can you do the view of the pond, so we can kind of draw across and say, I forget, this is kind of more central in the pond, would you say?
What we're looking at is also replanting these areas where the tree is to be removed here. We've got an area that's gonna be replanted with some trees. And also that's tree here, replanted with trees, and over on this side here, replanted. So there's gonna be some new vegetation there. Obviously, it won't be as high as the big pine trees that are this huge.
Well,
30
also,
inch pines.
Sorry.
also along the water edge are some pretty mature trees that
Right
would
here.
probably block the majority of the view of the pines behind. But
We've located all of those trees too.
Could I ask, why are you cutting the trees? Is that because of the?
Well,
new
Sorry,
driveway?
we're going
kinda-
into
We're
discussion.
kinda going into discussion, so we gotta, you know, we have to
Been there
make
for
a
about
call.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right now, whether you wanna do it or don't, so if we don't, then they have to kind of re-notify people, cause it's not fair to people under that regulation, cause they weren't here, they didn't have a chance to voice their opinion. It would be nice to have an hour discussion about this, but you gotta make this call right from the get-go.
I do feel that even though, and my guess is that the trees are elderly and they need to come down, but I do feel that by notifying around the pond, then that makes it clear that they are being taken down for a reason. They are not being taken down for fanciful view
I mean,
reasons.
I suppose you could modify that to look at the vista where
Okay.
we'd see that.
How do we,
I can draw a line, I mean, we can field it or just, I'd say half the pond, kind of with an angle cut off. I
Okay.
think there's a hybrid versus a whole pond.
Down on one end of the pond, really.
Exactly.
How many houses are we talking going around the pond?
we're talking, we're discussing. Okay, shall we do half the pond? Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we amend the green card requirement to only pertain to the eastern half of the pond, according to a line, a vista line drawn by Steve.
I can work with engineer on that specific.
Does that work?
If the commission so votes it, I believe it can.
Is that too vague, the vista line as drawn by
No.
Steve?
I mean, you leave it to the discretion of the agent to kind of
Yeah,
pick where
Okay.
that
I
line
think they
is.
need to go out on the
Okay.
site and
Yeah.
make a,
Okay.
you know, see what's practical.
Is there, we have a motion, is there a second for that?
I second.
We have a motion, it's been seconded to essentially have the notification of half of the pond, bisect the pond, to be determined by the agent with the engineer in the field. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining. So what that means is we can't proceed any further in this particular case until we do that. We have,
Can't make a motion to continue with them.
You can. It's
We
it's
can.
an open hearing. You
We
have
can-
to. You approve it, deny it, or continue it. Those are your three options. It's been opened, so,
No.
sorry.
My question is, Carl is saying that we can't discuss right now until we get all the green cards.
Correct.
correct.
That is
Okay.
correct. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
Because again, it wouldn't be fair. It'd be actually would
Because
be,
those
it'd be
abutters
ground, it would
aren't
be
here.
grounds for someone to file an appeal because they say, hey, you didn't notify me.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So all you can do is, continue and, have the applicant re-notify those homes, homeowners.
Only the new ones, not the existing, because
Correct.
they were here.
Correct.
They were notified properly.
Right.
Or they were
Just
notified.
trying to
The
be legal.
additional ones.
Right, just trying to be legal.
And do we come back next month, or how does
Correct.
that?
They'll continue it next,
Okay.
so you'll know exactly the date and the time.
I'll entertain a motion to continue Seven Lake.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the hearing for 7 Lake Avenue, GCC 2016-14, 16108 to September 15th at 8 o'clock.
What, 7, just to get them in
Okay,
and
I
out?
thought you were protecting that early hour.
That's for these guys.
I'm sorry, what?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
No.
Second.
We have a motion, it's been seconded to continue the, notice of intent for 7 Lake Ave to September 15th at 7 PM. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, all abstaining. Sorry about that, but,
There might be a butter comment in the back.
okay, we haven't closed it yet, so, do you, looking to make a comment?
Yes, I'm in the butter to this gentleman's property.
You identify yourself, please?
Joseph Kalbarski, I live at 10 Lake Ave in
Again,
Georgetown.
Okay, again, this is kind of a gray area, because again, we don't have everyone here, so they can hear all the discussion. So I might actually ask you to hold it till everyone's here.
I don't know if I can make it the next time either.
You can
Ah,
put some in writing, Larry, Neil.
Yeah,
You
great.
can submit
Thank you.
that, and I can read it.
Yeah, again, I just don't wanna step on, any legality issues.
All these people.
That's, I
Perfect, thank you,
So
sir.
it's a
If you
number
ever
of
need
them all
any-
across there.
yeah. But he'll-
Assistance on discussing actions on the pond. I've been living there since 1981 on that pond. And it's a great place to live. Gotta do something about the planted invasive species there.
And work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it kind of is a difficult situation. You'd like to take discussion, but since we don't have everyone here, it's a public hearing, but again, we have to be fair. So, I'll entertain a motion to continue. I
We
know we
just
already did,
did.
all right. Close, rather. Getting me confused.
Wait, we
you don't
can't
clo-
close, we're just
Yeah, see, you're still
continuing.
getting me confused. All right, we continued already, so,
All right, thank you,
Thank you,
I'm
guys.
very
Sorry
sorry.
all right. Just kidding. Continue. Ah, great. All right, it being on or after 7:15, I'm going to open up a new notice of intent for 4 Canterbury Drive. BCC 2016-15. This is a subsurface sewage disposal system upgrade. If I could have the applicant and/or consultant, and if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
Good evening, my name is Tim Scanlon. I'm here on behalf of David Shigellin
Thank you.
at 4 Canterbury Drive. I'm here having filed a notice of intent as part of a septic system upgrade.
And could we have the green cards, as I see? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Shigellin has a existing 5-bedroom dwelling, has a septic system that's currently in failure. The existing system located here in orange, a septic tank and 2 leach pits. The property has some wetlands in the back as well as an intermittent stream shown in green. And the 50 and 100-foot buffer zones are also shown in a lighter green. We're proposing to upgrade the system, installing a septic tank, a pump chamber, and a leach field comprised of Presby and Virus septic pipes. We looked at the front of the property. We did some testing and found insufficient soils or poor soils, actually 7 to 8 feet of fill. And so we did the testing shown right here and proposed the system. We are 81 feet from the edge of the buffer zone, or at the edge of the resource area.
What is that corner of the system here?
Correct.
That's 81?
Correct. Corner of the leach field is 81 feet from the sea.
Oh, it does say that right
This is
there.
100, this is 75, so it's about 81 over to here is what it's saying.
Yep. The limit of the grading is 65 feet from the buffer zone.
Okay, yeah, bottom of the embankment, yeah.
Is
We
it-
have a limit of work, which is the siltation barrier shown here in the red.
Has this been approved by the Board of
It
Health?
has been approved by the Board of Health and received no comments from DEP.
Okay.
I'm sorry, is this replacing the existing system, the same footprint and everything?
No,
No.
right now, well, there's a septic tank that will be removed and we'll be utilizing that area. But there are two orange leach pit, or the leach pits shown in orange is what exists now.
So it's basically a cesspool.
Is this a really old house?
No, I don't believe so. I can check that.
Because it has leach pits instead of a septic system at the moment?
Leach pits are, you know, a septic tank with leach pits, different than a cesspool.
Oh, Okay.
You have the septic tank catching the solids, and then sending the effluent out to the leach pits.
Oh.
So you said the existing system is in orange.
Yep,
Where is that?
right here.
Yeah, got that. That's
Right
the
here.
leach pit.
Those are the two leach
Oh, I
pits.
see.
It's existing pit, and those two,
I
one on one
see.
side of the house, one on the other
So
side.
what are the plans for the
Okay.
existing leach pits?
They would be,
You
have
filled,
the-
crushed?
filled and left in place. They typically either knock the top in or take the cover off and fill.
And this was a failure? I'm sorry.
It is.
It is a failure, yeah.
Do I recall that a Presby takes up less of a footprint than another
It does.
kind of
It's
system?
about a 40% reduction.
Right.
And is this a standard gravity, no pressure dosing, anything, and just a standard system?
The leaching field through the Presbys is gravity, but there is a pump chamber that pumps up to a distribution box.
Yeah.
And then from there, it runs out in different lines.
So is it quite hilly out the back? It looks like it, is this, I can't really imagine what it looks like. It goes from like 86 down to 74. Is it quite a grade going down the back towards the, what percent grade would
No,
that be?
Probably 10 feet, 2 foot drop in 10 feet, so 1 in 5.
20% grade.
And Steve, you've been out to the site?
I have
Any comments?
no issues. It's really the only up front potentially, but I don't think it would fit. So I think this is really the only good
Mhm.
spot.
Mm-hmm.
It's also interesting that part of the driveway's on the abutting property, but it's not our problem.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
for another board to deal with. Any more questions or other questions from commissioners? Are there any abutters to 4 Canterbury? And what's the timeline for installation?
I know they wanna put the house on the market, so I
So-
assume they'll be.
This fall?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a benchmark.
And who flagged the wetlands out back?
Julie Von Drock?
Probably not a lot of alternatives here. Again, we haven't walked it or walked the line, so we can't really speak to that.
Right.
I entertain a motion, if Commissioner wanna make one, to address this.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the NOI for 4 Canterbury Drive, GCC 2016-15, DEP 161-08.
2-8.
28?
It's not in there. We didn't put it in. And then I'm not accepting the wetland line.
And not accepting the wetland lines.
Second.
We have a motion, and it's been accepted to approve the notice of intent for 4 Canterbury Drive, GCC 2016-15, not accepting the wetland line. Are there any special conditions that commissioners would like to see? Yes, no, or otherwise? If not, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining? Motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to close the notice of intent for 4 Canterbury Drive.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we close 4 Canterbury Drive.
Second.
We have a motion, it's been seconded to close the notice of intent for 4 Canterbury Drive. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All abstaining?
Thank you very much.
And let's see. being on or after 7:20, I'm going to open up a new notice of intent for 47 West Street, DEP 161-08. I do not see a GCC number here. This is a construction of 16-unit senior housing development with associated grading, roadway, septic systems, utilities and stormwater management structures. Portions of proposed project are within the buffer zone to the BVW. However, the applicant or consultant, if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
Michael Seacamp Environmental Consulting. Also with me tonight is Paul Haverty.
Paul Haverty from Blattman, Bobrowski, Mead and Talaman.
Oh,
Yes, it is.
And Richard Morello is also here, project proponent.
so, gentlemen, why don't I see a GCC number?
I get the green cards before we get into any discussions.
You want the green cards or you want the copies of the receipts?
Both. Thank you, sir.
And
Sorry, Paul, you may proceed.
Thank you.
Details.
Back to my question, sir. Why don't I see an application, why don't I see a GCC number for this particular?
When you say a GCC number, do you mean a number under your local bylaw?
Correct.
Because there is no application in front of you under the local bylaw.
And why is that?
That's because this project is a comprehensive permit project. It has already received a comprehensive permit from the Board of Appeals. That comprehensive permit encompasses all local approvals, including local approvals under the wetlands bylaw. So we already have our approval under the local wetlands bylaw. This is simply an application under the Wetlands Protection Act.
You have your permit. I think you're gonna need to clarify that a little more for me, anyhow.
So a comprehensive permit issued by
Saying
the...
this is a 40B project.
Correct.
This was an over 55 project.
It's not a 40B.
No, it's not, sir.
Yes, it is.
And we have a comprehensive permit that was issued by the Board of Appeals.
The Board of Appeals did say that has to go through the Conservation Commission early on, so there was both discussions, so.
And we did come before the Conservation Commission, and they did issue a permit under the local bylaw.
That expired.
It expired, correct.
But the Board of
Or-
Appeals issued a comprehensive permit. And a comprehensive permit, by its very name, comprehensive, subsumes all other local approvals.
And
Now,
it says
it-
to go to the Conservation Commission for the local
For-
wetland stuff, within that comprehensive permit.
It doesn't really matter what it says. It is all local permits. I understand that it denied waivers under the local bylaw, but they cannot tell you have to go to another local board. Under Chapter 40B, it is approvals of every single local board acting locally. You retain your jurisdiction under the Wetlands Protection Act. The Board of Appeals has no authority to issue an approval pursuant to the Wetlands Protection Act. But under your local bylaw, they are the permit granting authority.
How long ago was this?
1969, oh,
2002.
I'm sorry, I thought you were asking when Chapter 40B went into effect.
No, but
It was issued in 2003.
2002.
2002.
Is that, it doesn't have an an expiry date?
I'm working with the zoning board to better understand, this is a state application before you. It's in my opinion that they do need to file a local. We can handle this 100% under the state regulations, but at some point we have to clarify, which is why there's more questions rather than answers at our end.
Well,
Because
I
I
mean,
haven't done much of the heavy lifting as far as that goes.
I mean, we can deal with this right now as a
Right.
state permit. I mean, there's normally
And if it's
a
determined.
dual permit process, so, I mean, you can deal with it separately.
I'm just asking, our permits or, approvals are only good for 3 years. This is 14 years ago, so there's no limited life to a comprehensive permit. It's good in perpetuity.
That's a ZBA question. I don't really think it's relevant to this. You know, like, we're not ZBA people. I
Okay,
think we
but
should-
I do have that question.
I will ask that.
I
question
do
to the
have that
ZBA.
question.
And I believe that there's something in the file from the Board of Appeals from within the last year indicating that the permit remains valid. There is a lapse provision for a comprehensive permit, but it does not require the work to be completed by a particular point in time. It just requires that any sort of work pursuant to the permit commence within 3 years, and that period can be extended. And there's also automatic extensions of that period during any sort of appeal processes.
So any kind of work would include the.
The environmental remediation
Okay,
would include it.
okay.
So Board of Appeals has already issued its determination that the permit remains valid.
So for the past 15 odd years, the applicant has been working with us on a cleanup for this particular site.
Mhm.
And we're working under both state and local rules and regulations.
Okay,
You have local regulations on environmental cleanup?
If you have chemical contaminants contaminating wetlands, yes, we certainly can work in that and have been working with the DEP for about 15 years on this cleanup. Maybe more.
Under an enforcement order from you
Correct.
folks, right?
Correct.
which is outside of the comprehensive permit process. Because there was no enforcement order that was issued with regard to work having been done towards the 40B project.
No, because we set it up so there would be two separate hearings, so there'd be a cleanup
Mhm.
first.
Understood, and work done outside of the 40B parameters certainly would continue to be subject to the local bylaw. But work for the 40B development that is approved by the Board of Appeals via a comprehensive permit constitutes the approval under the local bylaw.
Well, we'll take that under advisement and
Sure.
we'll look it up from, research it from our end and we'll proceed
Mhm.
with this on the state.
I mean, I know that this is sort of a complicated area of the law, and I think, maybe some input from town council would be advisable. You can sort of get a level of comfort from them as, beyond just
Well,
what I'm telling you.
seeing how this has gone on for 15 years, the level of comfort is rather difficult.
Okay,
Isn't this right by one of the resources that we draw drinking water
Zone
from as well?
Zone
So-
2 wellhead,
Mhm.
National
Yeah.
Heritage
Mhm.
Endangered Species.
So,
Okay,
Great.
so, we have bordering vegetated wetlands. I have them outlined in green. And here's the corner on West Street. This is the former Tids junkyard. It is now considered clean by the state, DEP. We have information which is available online to that effect. We are also within habitat of Blandings Turtle. And at one time, we were in the habitat of, or close to the habitat of four-toed salamanders, which have been delisted. However, their habitat is primarily sphagnum bogs. There's no sphagnum bogs within probably a quarter mile of this property. We did meet with Natural Heritage a couple of weeks ago to survey the site, to complete what we had started in 2007, when we had picked the project up again for approval, but it was subsequently withdrawn because of the cleanup enforcement order. And, but they have given us a clearance that there will be no impact to Blandings turtle habitat as a result of the proposed project. And I forwarded that information to the Conservation Commission. As I said, this is a over 55, as well as affordable housing units, 16 units. So, access on the corner of West Street where the Tids junkyard was, and on-site sewage disposal system for the entire project is located right here. And that's pretty much it. Oh, in addition, the area that's outlined in blue, which is about half of the site, will be deeded to the town as open space.
and when was the wetland last delineated out there?
I delineated it in November of 2015, and I included the data transects that I used. It's very similar to the delineation that was done back in, I think it was 2001 when I originally did it, which had been reviewed course, at that time, there was a lot of junk cars in there, but there's no direct wetland impacts. We didn't try to go across the wetland at all to do any development out there, and that's why this area is going to be deeded to the town.
Is there an intermittent stream that goes through the property? There was one going down West Street.
This back here is an intermittent stream on the,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that goes down the hill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that'll be on the parcel that is being deeded, would be deeded to the town.
One of the first things I would suggest is the commission schedule a site walk, because most of you have never been out on this property.
When would be a good time to do that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Typically, we do it after a third-party review kind of confirms the
Correct.
wetland line.
Okay, that's a good idea.
But
They pick up the detail.
Pardon?
They can pick up the detail before we're
Mhm.
out there,
you can always wait to do a site walk, kind of make that motion after we get a sense for the timeline regarding the third-party review and when they think they can
Okay.
get out there. So maybe, the next meeting, be able to schedule that. Right now, I think Jillian's on, she's at a conference in this far away, so she's gone for probably a week.
Okay.
So that's the other thing I would recommend motioning too, that we should do a third party.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we engage a third-party review with, oh gosh, what's the name of her company? Steve,
BSC?
BSC, to confirm the wetland line.
So they actually do a review of the whole notice of intent. So
I'm
this is not-
sorry, I
this is
can't
not-
hear you.
This is not an ANRAD, this is a notice of intent. So
Right.
typically, they review everything.
Okay,
Not
great.
just the,
Lovely.
not just the line.
Right, and this is a whole.
To review the project. Second.
Second.
There is a motion and it's been seconded to engage BSC to review this project in the wetlands line. Is there any further discussion?
This level of detail and the size of the project, is it the same as what was approved back in, or has it changed?
It is the same. Nothing has changed.
Do you know what the daily flows of the sewage?
I don't. We'd have to
Check with the engineer.
check with the engineer on that.
It's a good sized project.
Well, they're all two-bedroom, it's 110 gallons a day,
Well,
two-bedrooms, so.
We can,
Kind of-
we can pick up the discussion after we
Right.
deal with the motion,
Yeah.
then we
Yeah.
can charge on with that. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, or abstaining, motion carries, and if you wanna ask questions,
Sorry.
feel
Yeah.
free, I just wanted to make sure we didn't forget about it.
Yeah, I just was curious as to, in reviewing this plan, the plan for whatever it was, in 2002, that reflects the same layout and the same,
Same layout,
same everything?
same infrastructure, the same stormwater management system, same septic system. And it was approved under both the bylaw and the State Wetlands Protection Act at that time. We also, the wetland delineation was reviewed and approved under a separate process. We had filed a request for determination of applicability prior to filing the notice of intent. And that was reviewed by Wetlands Preservation at the time.
And it looks like, since we don't know exactly when they're gonna do the review, I can't really schedule a site walk. So,
Right.
we'll have to postpone that till we get some more information from the third party. And any more questions from commissioners at this point?
I just had a question. They're gonna, third-party review will review the entire project, including the legality?
No,
No.
How would we go about?
that would be a town council head question. looking at the science of the site, you know, in terms of wetlands, and actually they're gonna look at it basically against the state act, you know, unless we get a determination otherwise, not the bylaw.
Okay.
So we'll need to have that feedback quickly.
So what is the status with this, with the planning board? You don't need to go before the planning board because you have a
'Cause it's chapter
comprehensive
40,
permit.
right.
It's grandfathered in under your 2002
Right, the comprehensive permit issued by the Board of Appeals is a permit for all local authorities. For any board that's issuing a local.
Sorry,
region.
you did say that before.
Yeah, so,
I
so.
Get it now.
Like this board, you know, this commission, under the Wetlands Protection Act, that's a state act, so you retain your jurisdiction, so what the Board of Appeals issues, you know, is only under the local, same thing for the Board of Health. So Board of Health administers Title V, they have to, you know, still have to go to Board of Health, get approval for the septic systems, but if they have local rules and regulations, that approval process is part of the Board of Appeals process.
Got it. Thanks.
Welcome.
If there are no more questions, I'll open it up to abutters, since we have an open hearing. Are there any abutters to 47 West Street? If you'd like to say something, please identify yourself for the record, and you may speak.
Yes, I'm Bob Watts. I live at 9 West Street, next door up West Street. Needless to say, I have a lot of concerns regarding this project. Certainly, wetlands delineation, current, new, by the, commissioned by the Concom, is very important to me. Also, the location and the details of the septic system and leaching field. It looks in this drawing as if it's in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 feet from my property line. And obviously that concerns me greatly. I'm wondering, Steve, if I could get a copy of the drawings?
I can do that.
That would be great, thank you. The last question is regarding the length of time between this 15 years. I know that work has been done, and I believe that there was an approval of the mitigation work that was done. That being said, there's still debris that's sitting on the surface. And I don't know what the basis was of saying that this is done, but I don't really see how this could be done, seeing as there is debris on the surface. There are also mounds that were pushed up by Mr. Tidd years ago, and what's underneath those mounds and why those mounds were built, I think is a question that's germane to this whole question. Also, finally, I'm wondering when was the last time there was any mitigation work done there? When was there last any work done there? I believe that was a long time ago, and perhaps 3 years from the start, but they haven't done anything in quite some time, and I'm wondering if in fact, and I would suggest that we, as a town, engage the town attorney to kind of pull back some of the covers here. You know, if nothing's been done in 10 years, is the ZBA's approval still valid? Is this comprehensive agreement still valid? That's
Interesting questions, and, you know, some of them, you know, are within our area, some of them are probably in some other boards, but it's a unique, certainly based on the longevity of this case, it's a rather unique situation, so.
totally. Thank you.
Any other abutters?
Well, I'd like to wait, and we'll comment further after the new wetlands delineation is done. Seems to be requested. My concern is that This is not.
If you could just identify yourself
I'm
for the
sorry.
record, Steve Epstein.
Stephen Epstein, 55 West Street, the abutter on the other side.
Thank you.
Downhill. It was my understanding from plans that were in front of the zoning board of appeals that the catch basin on both on the far side of the street that drains onto my property, was going to be tied into the new catch basin being placed on my side of the street, so that that old drainage of the street into that area of my property would no longer be occurring. And I'm not seeing it on this plan. In fact, I'm seeing that continuing to exist. And I think for other purposes, I think that it would behoove the applicant to also speak to and get some sort of letter from the highway department concerning the improvement of that drainage, because as you all know, we're supposed to be cleaning up our catch basins that are going into possible wetlands and other areas.
I was gonna say, Steve, can you show me exactly what, sorry, I just wanna make sure that we're addressing.
It's probably this
The
one right
lower right, left corner.
This one?
here.
This is the new
Triangular
one.
one?
This is the new one, my side of the street.
Correct, okay.
This is the existing one, far side of the street. There's also a swale right here at the edge of the property that is draining my side of the street. Without that swale, my basement gets flooded every time there's a 3-inch or more rain, particularly when the ground's frozen. And my understanding was that it was going to be, this one was gonna be tied in with that one, so that it would all be coming back. I believe this now flows through a swale up here to the back of the property. Am I correct?
You folks wanna address that?
Well, it doesn't, it's not shown as connecting now, and I'm not aware that that was agreed to in 2002, was it?
I believe it's in the plan, it's in the zoning.
Again,
board of
it's
appeals
very
decision,
long case history here, so everyone has to do some digging.
which should be
Yeah,
provided
that's why I wrote it
by
down.
you to them.
I beg your pardon?
The zoning board of appeals decision on the 40B permit should have been provided to the Conservation Commission. It would have
So-
been avoiding a lot of the questions concerning the legality.
I got it if you want to
Well,
look through it.
No, they should have it already. I have it somewhere in my house. My point being is that it will be good to have this draining through this swale back to the, I believe it comes back at least to here.
Right, and it gets treated as
And
well,
it's
so.
being treated
yeah,
as
so,
well, but
yeah,
this
I'll
would-
bring that up with the engineer.
This would leave the south side of the street, which it does have significant draining, and Peter is intending to do the whole street as soon as, at least this part of the street, as soon as the project is being done.
Where does the water flow once it comes out of that pipe?
Once it comes out of that pipe, it flows to an outflow over here and goes through my property and then back into this.
Into that wetland?
Into that wetland over there.
But you said it causes flooding on your property?
Well, if I don't keep the swale on my side, this country drainage on my side of the street clear, and I don't make sure that that culvert stays clear of leaves, yeah,
It comes over the street?
it comes across the street, because the street's lost its crown if it ever had one, and all that water ends up in my basement, which is field stuff.
Okay, all right, that's good information, thank you.
And I have a question not relating to the storm water, but the other abutters' comments about there still being metal or other materials in the site. You wanna address that?
I believe the state has declared that the site is clean, from my understanding.
So one of the conditions of the commission allowing the closeout and withdrawal of both applications was the entire disturbed site is gonna get sifted 2 feet down for all material.
It's gonna be 1 foot of screening.
So that was in the previous application, right? This has been before the commission for years and years.
Years and years.
So per the previous discussions, the applicant agreed to screening all the disturbed area down to get rid of any buried, to see if there's any buried material, and then to remove any small trash.
But the
debris,
question is,
glass.
when was that gonna occur? What phase?
I think the concept was At the time, we could have had them do it, but the site was stable because it's vegetated, and it didn't make any sense to dig up a site, sift all this stuff out, then put it back down, because we had to worry about erosion into our watershed. And so that was gonna get carried forward to a new application, and there'd be a condition that, you know, before any real work starts, they'd go in and do all this as kind of a
I would assume be when we put the infrastructure in, be the same, you know, you're disturbing basements and all that, so.
So are we reevaluating the potential contaminants out there when they're doing that? It depends what they find.
If they dig a hole and it fills up with greasy black goo, yes,
I mean, yeah, I
but
mean, if
this
they,
state
if
is
they
not
unearth a
wrong.
drum out there, you know, that's
For
kind of all
real.
bets are off as far as the
Right.
cleanup is concerned, you know.
But we're
again,
not doing any more
No.
sampling while they're doing that.
Not unless, again, there's something, in my
Smoking
opinion, you
gun.
see something egregious that, you know,
Okay.
as a professional, you look and say, gee, I'm seeing you know, a stain on the ground, what have you.
Yep. So did you say 1 foot?
I know it has to go down, I thought it was 2 feet, the applicant thought 1 foot, it's in a, you know, I just have to go back to the minutes and pull out exact specifics.
Again, there's been so much literature and documentation for years and years associated with this, and virtually no one here was involved in this in the beginning, and you know, a lot of stuff gets forgotten. So,
I was involved in being.
I was too.
I know you were.
Kevorkian or whatever. his
Yeah,
name was.
he was involved in the meetings. I was involved from the day we started cleaning the place.
And I think we moved into the enforcement order phase 48 hours after the order of conditions was issued, because the owner of the property
Mr.
was at odds
Terry,
with
you got
the
it.
developers,
You
and
decided to
their
take
attorneys were
charge.
fighting with each other, and
Right.
on and on and on.
Right. It just doesn't, we don't seem to get going forward, you know, we're doing everything in our power to get this done, and there's always a hiccup, there's always this.
Well, over the years, there's been kind of poor communication. I'm
Yeah.
hoping that in this phase of the development, we can have, you know, in this modern day of instant communication, you know, we can communicate with each other.
We're ready. We're here, we're ready to go. You get your third party guy lined up, we'll be happy.
Any other abutter?
There was just one thing, Joe reminded me, on the, vernal stream. Just behind here, in the spring and really until it dries out in the summer, there's a great deal of water that's moving down here. And currently, when the ground is frozen, in this area, there's a pool that forms every spring.
Yeah, it's showing it.
I don't see a stream marked on here. Is it on here?
Yeah, it's all wet though, it's all showing wet, so it's kind
Oh,
of
yeah, I mean,
implies
so
that
we're
it
just talking
kind of
runoff
implies.
within this wetland area here that comes down this way.
As I recall, it's not really a really distinct channel, but there was an area that you can see water
Right.
typically when it's not
Yeah.
really
Mhm.
dry, that would kind of flow down the back of the.
Yeah, when my house was built in '92, it changed the way, the 4 or 5 houses on my side of West Street, it really changed the way the water moves on that road.
Yeah, we've been talking about that regarding something else as well.
If I knew then what I know now, it would be my house.
Is there any stormwater detention on this? I don't see anything. This is the first I've looked at the plan, so I may be
Yeah,
missing
we've
something.
submitted the stormwater management plan and the stormwater checklist from the engineer.
But there's no reduction in
detention
flow?
basins.
There's no, it doesn't look
All
like there's
runoff.
any. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, you get developed runoff going off the site.
All riprap, it's all flood and runoff.
So there's no reduction, or there's no stabilization of the flow. It'll increase from what it is right now.
No, there's no increase.
No.
Are you going,
We're not allowed to increase the flow.
are you going from an undeveloped site to a lot of pavement and houses,
Yeah, it's a
and there's no
paved site,
increase?
and I don't see anything to hold the water back.
There's no increase in peak flows. That's part of the stormwater management policy.
I don't see how that's even physically possible, but we'll have
Well-
someone review
Well,
it. To your
again,
point,
there may be
That-
something there I
That'll be part of
don't
the
see.
BSC's scope, I would assume.
Yep.
The other thing that I apologize again, I'm looking at this for the first time.
Sure.
That 25-foot right-of-way that shows going off to, I guess it's Georgetown Conservation Commission land. It's going towards it on the north side of the site. Off the cul-de-sac that's proposed.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Do you know what that is?
When you say the.
I'm still trying to find what you're talking about.
It's, yeah, it's
Right away?
Oh, I
the
see.
right
now.
of way.
Yeah, I
right?
think,
Right.
I think I insisted upon that.
Okay,
Because,
that's get
yeah,
access to the
right, because
conservation.
I
land.
will
land
not,
in the
accept-
back.
I will not accept land for the town if there's no
Okay.
public access.
Okay.
It's crazy
what it
in my
is.
opinion.
Okay.
I mean, it gives someone a
Yeah.
tax break, whatever, you know, there's no way to get to it.
Okay, that's all conservation land.
Sir,
I'd also like to see that instead of the parcel, unless the zoning board of appeals in their special permit, comprehensive permit, determine that the land should go to the conservation commission, I would want it to go to the water company.
the water company?
Yes, they own the parcel immediately behind this,
We, yes, so,
right? It makes sense to have that parcel, and they are better stewards of their forest. I wake up every morning dreading that the Lufkin's Brook Reservation is going to go up in flames because you have done nothing to remove debris from the ground there.
your opinion is noted.
Take a walk through it.
I have walked through it, sir.
Yeah. One lightning strike and the whole neighborhood could go up, just like California.
So we should just level it all.
No, you should maintain the fire roads.
Sir,
Joseph Carosa, 34 West Street. My concerns are they were always before in the past. The leaching field, the stream that's behind Bob Watts' house, I've seen how bad it is when it snow's melting, the rain, it's a river. And what's the proximity of that leaching field to that stream? Because it's gonna come again, and the concern is the contamination of our drinking water. What's gonna be done with that stream back there? Because it happens. You might not see it right now, 'cause it's dry out, but Mr. Epstein's right. All that water, there's a lot of water that comes down that street.
Is that something that BSC will be looking at?
oh, they would have to
Okay.
review the whole stormwater plan,
Mhm.
and you can also ask for hydrology review too.
So, a little worried about identifying that snow melt runoff in this, in this time of year. How do they identify that?
Snow runoff?
That's their concern.
It's not just snow, it's rain. Rain, well, yeah, when
So
you
I think
get
it's just-
a lot of rain, I mean, it gets.
Just runoff in general.
Okay,
I think
so it's
runoff
just
captures both.
general runoff.
It's
Okay.
a river behind Bob Watts' house.
Yeah,
Would that
the land
cause
generally-
soil changes and vegetation changes? How would they find that? How would they identify
sorry,
that?
what are we
If it's
trying-
not actively happening?
It's
BSC.
probably channelized. It says, they're acknowledging there's a stream back there.
Well, it's gonna be a paper exercise. They're gonna calculate
Yeah.
based on, you know,
What the watershed is.
anticipated rainfall flows. I mean, again, that's why the stormwater in reality versus what's calculated in the book. You know,
Okay.
Sometimes they don't always meet.
Laura, I'm missing what you're asking. Are you asking how do they determine if there is something there? I mean, everyone's acknowledging there is a temporary stream that's back there. So they can evaluate to see if it's, perennial by looking at the hydrology of the area and the stormwater, but I'm not really sure what you're asking.
I guess I view runoff as being a really situational event.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure that it would cause changes in the soil or the vegetation, and yet what they're describing is quite a serious ponding, sort of rushing ponding event that impacts
So
this site
what we did on
in
one of the
particular.
previous developments, if you remember, I insisted upon a snow management plan, where we
Right.
actually had snow areas, and this is what's done on larger sites, where you actually designate areas where you're going to put your snow and other, that's from a winter perspective, that doesn't deal with the other perspective. That's with the whole.
Right, but we're dealing with the snow on this site, and they are talking about rain and snow events coming down the hill and impacting this site from off the site.
I'll ask Jillian how you'd
Okay.
investigate that. I guess I don't
Okay,
know the
because
answer to
that seems like a legitimate concern.
And how would you do that, given the extended route that we're in?
It's a paper exercise,
Oh,
as Carl
okay.
said.
It's an engineering exercise.
George Comiskey, 45 Oakwood, Jacobs Road. I was actually involved in the beginning too, I was part of a public involvement plan.
A PIP group?
The PIP group,
And I also submitted a letter on behalf of Hawk River Clean Water Association, you know, because of the proximity to the well fields. It submitted to Steve. I don't know if it got distributed, but I don't have to read it, but I think I can ask some questions off it. Applicants, that's okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Go ahead.
So I guess the first question was that as of August 2nd, they hadn't heard from Natural Heritage, but I guess that's been addressed with the letter of no take. The application itself, my understanding at reading the Registry of Deeds is that Gene Pequin is another trustee and he's not listed in the application.
Gene Paquin?
Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me, I'm pretty sure she is. It's a she.
It says property owner, it says, check if more than one owner, it's not listed.
What's the date on that?
It's it's WPA Form 3, Notice of Intent to the town.
6/5/16 is the signature.
Well, she signed them, I know she signed them.
There's no other property owner, is it?
There's only one shown in the entire document.
So Georgetown West Realty
Realty
Trust
Trust.
is still the,
Yeah. Me and her are both trustees.
so should that be inserted, or?
No.
It's Georgetown West Realty, right?
So can you resubmit the notice of intent with that correction?
I don't see why there's a need for a correction. The trustees would each have the authority to sign. You need both trustees to sign the document. They're signing as
So
trustee of the.
So it's filed as a Georgetown
Realty Trust.
Trust as
Right.
one entity.
So it's signed by the trustee. One of the trustees is all the same.
They have full signature authority.
Correct.
Okay. You have, under the stormwater checklist, you're using the year 2000 checklist. That's not the same as the 2008 stormwater handbook checklist?
That's a question for the engineer. I'll have to ask him that. You have a copy of the current stormwater checklist?
It's on the DEP website. I'm just wondering
Okay.
why you used the 2000. 2000 doesn't address the 2008 stormwater handbook, right? You're not seeking relief from the new stormwater standards, are you?
No.
So that would seem to be valid.
So you don't have a valid stormwater checklist?
Any other comments?
Also, in your narrative, it says the project has been intentionally designed to avoid infiltration of stormwater as required by the Georgetown Water Board due to concerns about contamination of groundwater from existing junkyard. Is there a letter, do you have a letter from the Water Board?
I
This
don't.
is in your narrative that you submitted in the application, so.
Yeah, that's based on the information from 2002, and we'll look into that, find out if that letter exists, if we have it.
With just the general design, if you're going by the 2000
permitting to avoid infiltration. Is that in the spirit of the 2008 regulations? I thought 2008 regulations want to see infiltration.
Again, that's a question for the engineer, I'll ask him that.
That's essentially the same thing I was bringing up. There doesn't seem to be any retention of the stormwater, but with this other environmental question, that may be something that's.
You're going by the design of the old system. That doesn't seem to meet the latest Mass Stormwater Handbook standards. So, you know, I'm wondering why even the state hasn't picked up that. You know, this. I think they had questions back in 2007 when you reapplied for your permit. They had, you know, does it meet current standards? So you're kind of backed up by the zoning board of appeals decision. It said, you know, one of the conditions was the applicant shall line the bottom of all detention basins with impervious material to prevent direct injection of drainage water into the ground. You know, so to address like Mr. Epstein's concerns, if things are being kept above ground, it seems that we would have concern about more flooding on the property.
No, I'm not at all concerned about that once those catch basins go in, George, because it's all gonna flow down to an existing place where water collects to the north of the TID property, former TID property, which is identified on the plan.
On the site plan, are there any plan references? How come there weren't any plan references? Usually you see plan references. Maybe a road layout reference, because it doesn't seem like you have West Street listed on you. You can't tell if it's crowned or which way it's sloped.
Well, there's a detail sheet on the plan.
There's no plan. Usually they have plan references on a plan, on the cover sheet.
And what is it you're looking for reference to?
Then there's I couldn't follow the plan that well because there's no legend key. So is there a legend key in your plan?
I'm not sure what you're looking for. We have detail sheets.
Is there a legend, legend key that tells you what all the symbols are?
No. We have 2 detail sheets.
And there's no scale on the front plan.
But you're looking for the detail of West Street.
I don't think the plan's very detailed. Some plans you've seen at the planning board, they have like 20 sheets. We've got a 3-sheet plan with 16 units of housing, associated drainage, streets. It's just, I've seen more details in the plan. And so a new, Steve addressed this, but there's also a new catch basin that's being installed on West Street that's being directed to a catch basin?
Yes.
How much water is gonna be flowing from West Street into that catch basin? You're bringing water actually on site now into a catch basin, and there's no volumes given of how much water West Street.
Again, that's a question for the engineer, and we'll pose that to him.
You only show, I think, the 176-foot grade. I think if you go to the top of West Street, it's 200 feet from the top of the hill. So,
there's no catch basins in between there and there?
Nope.
Nothing at all, huh?
And there's 5 driveways that slope toward West Street, built
since '92.
Since '92.
So you're gonna have to tear them off.
Which is why my
Fix 'em.
basement was dry between '86 and '92.
You're gonna have to.
Keep draining.
So usually this is submitted as calculations. Usually you get calculations about this thick on a standard subdivision.
Apparently under this permit, and we have one board, you just do a couple
Right,
sheets.
So how can your reviewer review the calculations that haven't been submitted yet?
I think I acknowledge it's a very thin stormwater review. I think that's part of sending out to a third-party review, so an engineer can look at it and say, here are the things that are lacking.
But he usually gets the calculations to review, and it would.
So he'll
planning board.
So he'll ask for them. So he'll have to ask for them. When
The engineer will supply them if they're not in the stormwater management already.
Yeah.
No, they're not. I got the application that everyone else got.
It's very thin, I agree. The actual document is then in 3 sheets on a plan. It's
For the
very
size of the
laggy.
project, yeah.
Any further questions?
Yes.
Yes.
According to the site plan notes, number 4, it says indicates a group of monitoring wells will be installed on site. It doesn't show them on the plan. And it's, the note you have on the cover page, there's supposed to be monitoring wells 1 through 8. I think it was felt by the zoning board at the time.
Monitor wells are all in, they've been in.
It's not on the plan. Do you see them on the plan?
I'm not aware that they're on the plan, no.
And that was the monitoring ones, I believe, were part of the cleanup, not
Yeah, but they're staying in.
oh, of course.
Yeah.
So in the zoning board decision, I think it was felt back then that once the construction starts and dirt's being moved around, it was felt that maybe some contaminants might end up in the wells, that
Well, yeah, I mean,
there was
we-
supposed to be a monthly report submitted on those monitoring wells during the construction phase. So that's why they need to be shown on the plan. And according to the ZBA decision, unless you're requiring a modification of that decision, you're gonna be checking those 8 wells for,
We just checked them last December, yeah.
did you submit the report to the
It's
council?
all been done, yeah.
You're also talking during construction, so going
Yeah,
forward.
it's a little
Well, I mean,
premature,
they're not
yeah.
showing on the plan though.
Yeah, they're on the plan, obviously.
They're not on the plan.
They're on a plan.
Oh, well, okay.
Well, yeah, they obviously need to modify that
Right.
plan to put them on there.
Okay, I have the zoning board decision in front of me, but to Bob Watt's question, according to CBA decision number 41, a mounting analysis supposed to be done for the septic system. For-
Mounting analysis?
Yeah.
I know there's a soil test that's been done.
The applicant shall submit a mounting analysis to the Board of Health. Must demonstrate the project will not adversely affect the septic system or drainage to the abutting parcel known as 9 West Street. So do you have that?
We haven't done it yet. That's gonna be
just
done
to-
before we start
To
construction.
see with the amount of sewage that's discharged, the effluent is discharged into the area, especially in a risen area like this, how it would distribute and flow out.
Well, we have soil tests and perk tests for that site where it's going, that's why it was
Yeah.
designed to go there,
Right.
because they passed.
It's gonna show the groundwater mound under the
Yeah.
septic
There's
system.
no other place that you could do this, not enough space anywhere else that isn't in a wetland.
It's going where it's going, that's why it was picked to go there.
Yeah, right next to my property.
Well,
So I'd just like to read, so all this, these are all being built on slabs, right? Because the groundwater is very high.
The groundwater's not high there at all.
So I'll read this. There's no test data to determine if the stormwater facility placements are in optimal locations. We are aware of how high groundwater levels testing from past remediation efforts from Peter Lagoy method risk characterization reports that levels are 1 to 2 feet below surface. Lagoy, this is quoting him, groundwater is encountered at depths to 1 to 2 feet below ground surface. The site is within approved zone 2, therefore groundwater is considered to be a source of drinking water. Groundwater flow towards the Parker River, which flows in a northeasterly direction to the site. Additional data was provided by Edge Environmental, showing the monitoring wells that were existing on there, confirming that, so I just have a hard time believing that there's gonna be water, all this water coming on site is being contained and not run off and even under state regulations. I'm having a tough time seeing how you're gonna keep all this water on site. As far as the attorney's letter challenging it is my understanding that Georgetown is above 10% affordable housing provision when the decision was handed down in 2002. This acknowledgement was in the determination of the ZBA decision. We believe this should no way prohibit from Mass DEP from administering the State Wetland Protection Act or current regulations. We believe the applicant is at fault for non-compliance history and should not be grandfathered on the previous rules and regulations. That's my letter. So, I think you really need to not just take the attorney's
Well, yeah,
word of this.
I mean,
You should
that's, we definitely need to,
contact Copeland and Page and
regroup with town council,
challenge.
review these statements and verify them.
We're too late to change it. By the way, they were in front of the ZBA before the Mira project. So when the Mira project got approved and built, it didn't affect their application because they were already before us.
So, any further questions, because we're not gonna wrap this up tonight.
All right, I just feel like I can challenge that.
And it's a little premature, but normally, once we do schedule the site walk, I usually ask the applicant if they would allow butters on the site walk. We haven't scheduled it yet, but you can think about that. We probably will come to scheduling a date next hearing. Is there any further discussion from commissioners at this point? Other than that, I would probably like to continue this.
When's your next hearing? Excuse me.
September 15th.
So you're not gonna be able to schedule these guys, you're gonna schedule the
We've-
water treatment guys to check out our plan right away?
The third-party
We've
review.
already
Yeah.
scheduled a
Yeah.
third-party review, we've already voted on that.
Okay, good.
So, but I didn't wanna determine when we're gonna do a site walk till
Yeah.
after they
I
do the
understand.
analysis,
Yeah,
come up,
yeah.
so we can have that when we walk out on the
Right,
site, so.
Right.
So as soon as we figure that out, then we can schedule the site walk, but since this was a unique site, that's why I ask about abutters, if the applicant wants to authorize abutters to go out there. Don't have to, but I ask. If no further questions, I'd entertain a continuance.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we continue 47 West Street to September 15th, 8 o'clock.
7:15?
Sure. Okay.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to continue 47 West Street to September 15th at 7:15 PM. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All abstained.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was 7:15, Steve.
Yes.
And let's see.
Yes.
And let's see, we have,
I think for the next relevant is, Mr. Lowe's here from that.
we have a discussion. And we have some discussion on 9 Gloria Road. If you could identify yourself for the record, please.
Barry Lowe, 9 Gloria Road.
Thank you. Gentlemen. Gentlemen, please. Thank you.
that.
Okay. Where do we stand with this?
We did a site walk last week, week and a half ago.
Hmm? And we looked at the branch.
So the two questions we were there for is to look at the branch and the tree and decide how best to proceed with that. And then the kind of area that's not growing any vegetation in the area that was restored a number of years ago.
All right, let's deal with the branch first. So the commissioners who were there, what were your thoughts on the branch?
It's gotta go. It's definitely a hazard. There were several dead branches off that tree, at least 2 or 3 dead branches.
And it's kind of leading in the direction of the house and that other property too.
The main trunk
Yeah.
of the split was heading towards the next door neighbor.
Right.
Away from your property, I think.
I think it was heading more
But
towards
the
the
dead
pond.
branch was,
And the other one was gone.
So I
But
think
the-
the back one was heading towards the pond.
Right.
The branch that fell is heading towards the neighbor's house, and the front trunk of the tree was heading towards the driveway. I don't think the back one was aiming towards the other guy's house. I think that was aiming towards the pond.
Yeah, it was aiming towards
The
the-
branch was heading
Right.
to the house.
exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty evident, the branch is gonna come down. I mean, it will, it's 80% there.
So all agreement on the branch being removed. That's kind of a no-brainer.
Right.
I think the next standard question, because the applicant requested cutting the entire tree down, both main branch, both leaders and the branch. So the branch is a no-brainer. That has to come off. What are the thoughts on the leader that had the branch break off on it that's heading towards the pond?
When I looked at it, over 2/3 was above where that branch broke off, 2/3 of the height of the tree. And I saw other trees on the property where branches had torn off and healed up very nicely. So I don't think that that would affect the tree all that much. 2/3 of the tree was wonderfully healthy above that one branch.
I don't see it as an imminent situation,
I wasn't there.
As a what?
as an imminent situation.
No, it was very much alive, but
Right.
it is ripped. I
Right.
had that happen on one of my trees, an ash tree, and it ripped in.
I mean, it
It's a
depends
matter
on the
of
tree,
time.
it depends on the tree type too, and whether the tree, you have termites or what have you, start.
Well, that's what happens, it invites that, unless it's corrected. I suppose you can correct this stuff if it's cut off properly and it's done correctly, it could.
And that tree
Okay,
that's damaged is leaning towards the pond,
And it's-
so it's not a
exactly.
danger. So the usual, the
What's that?
standard use is a safety concern. It's just gonna hurt someone or someone's property if it's heading into the woods.
Right.
Typically, let it fall. It's the usual standard, if it even ever does fall.
Right, and your concern was that dead branch that was more of to your property hanging over, right?
I mean, that's a pretty big rip there. It's weak. All the rest of the tree that's above that rip is gonna come down if that rip is weak. I mean, it seems like it will come down. And originally, Steve said to cut the whole tree down. He came out and looked at it, he was out 3 times at the property. He came out the first time, said to cut the whole thing down. He agreed the whole thing should come down. Your own conservation agent said to take the whole thing down.
No,
What about
I thought
arborist?
the leaning branch, based on what the arborist said in that branch, my original assessment was to
We-
take the right whole leader down.
Right trunk.
Not the whole tree, the right trunk. And the more I thought about it, that technique might weaken the left
It
leader.
absolutely will,
So-
because they're
So I've
linked.
changed my opinion based on the facts and looking into this more and talking to some arborists. If you weaken this one and you get rid of it, then
It'll
this will
cause the
never-
other one to fall. They're kind of-
What's most likely will happen is the one on the right leaning over the pond, if it ever does break, the tip will break off, it'll fall into the woods, no harm done. If and when that happens, then you can make an argument for taking the left leader down. But given how it is right now, I've never suggested to cut both leaders down. Originally,
That's not what I said. I said-
originally of the opinion, the right leader I thought should come down, but I've changed my opinion on that based on talking to some arborists and looking at the property a few more times.
So we're talking about just the dead branch.
That one branch.
I mean,
And I think
since,
we've-
since both of them draw support from each other, I mean, there's a structural element one pulling on the other. So you cut one off, and basically it's almost like the guide wire
Yeah.
got cut now, it will fall.
I agree, yeah.
That was my original statement to you in the beginning of why I requested them to both be cut down. And you didn't believe it.
No, what, I
But
think
we're
what we
saying
said is,
don't cut them both
don't cut them
down,
both
just
down.
remove the branch.
don't cut one down,
Yeah,
cut
but
the
one of
branch.
them's gonna come down. One of them's gonna come down, that right-hand one's gonna come down at one point. A big chunk of it already did. I mean, you know, you don't live there, your kids don't live there, so you're not concerned about safety. My kids, you saw where they play.
I beg
They
to
play right over there.
Sir, I'm concerned about safety, I work in safety every single day.
Well, I'm concerned about my kids and their safety. And you saw that's
Sure you
where
are.
they play. And we don't have a whole lot of area to go play anywhere else. All the rest of that area in the back there, we can't set up a jungle gym or something back there. I mean, I'm very limited to where my kids can play. And that tree is right where they are.
That tree was leaning away, that leader where the limb was ripped from, came down in a storm, is leaning away from the trampoline and the monkey bars.
I asked for them both sides to come down because of that. Because I knew if the right side came down, then the left side eventually would come down too.
But the right side hasn't come down.
But it will.
When did the branch break?
2 months ago.
It's an oak tree, and oak trees are known to live sometimes for 1,000 years.
Yeah,
This
if they're
one
not
don't.
damaged, sure.
No, they get damaged by wind.
So, can I ask?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I wasn't at the sidewalk, so I'm
Everybody else
just
was,
pure,
just to-
I
no,
know,
just to
I'm
rub it in.
terribly sorry, that's why I'm asking.
Great attendance.
So, there's a question about a tree that may or may not fall, and it may or may not be a safety issue, but we have also long-standing, concerns about other issues on this property, right? And, not knowing at all, about the site, but listening, I'm wondering if, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, if this gentleman could come forward with a restoration agreement in return for removing what he perceives to be a hazard to his family.
Well, understandable, there is already the rest.
I know that, but.
So per that argument, you could say, as part of the next conversation we're gonna have regarding that restoration area, you could add additional trees to make up for this
Right.
loss of a tree.
Exactly.
It's an option that I think
Well,
is very.
let's see, that's the next topic, and this
So you can table the tree one
segue into
now,
that,
too.
since nothing has grown there for 6 years, pretty much, so.
Right.
How are we gonna resolve that tied in with this? That's the question.
Well, it doesn't make any sense to have a restoration, in my opinion, to have restoration, put in plants and whatnot. If nothing's growing there, that would be throwing money right out into the water. Would it make more sense to have the soil tested to find out what's going on, why nothing is?
Why is nothing growing?
Why? Why
Do we
plant
know?
something if it's gonna not grow?
Have things
well, wait.
been
I have
planted there?
I have suspicions on what's going on, but
If you wanna have it tested, go ahead and have it tested, but I don't wanna pay for that. I mean, whatever grows back there or doesn't grow back there, I don't really care, I have nothing to do with it. I wasn't even living there for the past year. But if you wanna have engineers or whatever, you can hire them and pay for them, but I don't wanna pay for any of that.
May I ask, there was a restoration plan, was it implemented with the prior owners?
with this owner.
This owner.
Same ownership.
Oh, I see,
I
okay.
planted what they told me to plant, and that was it.
And there's nothing on site that resembles anything that was planted.
Yes, there is. I beg to, that's absolutely not true.
There's what, 3 plants?
There's grass.
That's not true.
There's low grass. We don't restore with grass. We restore with shrubs and trees.
I submitted,
So what
you
do
know,
you
an
think
Excel
was
sheet
there?
full of plants that were acceptable. You even asked to keep it,
But the
and then
question-
you picked 3
The
out,
question is,
and I planted them.
why isn't anything growing there?
It is growing there.
There's only grass growing back there.
There's not grass growing back there.
In fact, you're right, there's virtually no grass growing back there. There's virtually nothing growing there.
There's leaves like crazy back there. I mean, you know.
Those are from the trees.
Yeah, but, you know, the leaves kill everything. We've got deer back there eating. I don't know. I mean, I have nothing to do with that. If the leaves fall, if the sticks fall off the trees and the wind blows them, they blow them wherever. I don't rake, I don't cut, I don't do anything.
Trying to get you, you're saying, I have no response. It's your property. What we're trying to do, very simply, and I'll be as clear as possible, we're trying to get a restoration plan back there to work, so we actually are growing some vegetation. If we go back to, say, 2000, there was all kinds of stuff growing back there. You burned it. And what we're trying to get it back is to a point where there's actually some green back there other than a little bit of grass. That's really what we're trying to solve is the mystery.
You know, it's nature. Nature's back there. Nature can do what it wants. I don't want, if you know, when we moved in,
restoration plans don't work
Can I
by just
finish?
nature doing its
Can I-
thing.
can
You
I-
may finish.
When we moved in, there was water, the lake, the dam in the lake in Pentucket Pond wasn't built. There was water at the bottom of that hill, which is why we bought that property. The ecology was totally different. Georgetown put in a dam, the level of the lake went way down, and that was years ago, and since then the ecology has been changing. Whatever grows back there is completely different than what it was when we bought the place. And I have nothing to do with that. I think eventually over time, you know, the wetland itself and the buffer zone attached to it will probably recede farther and farther out into that lake as more of that area turns into a meadow, which has been happening for the past couple of
It's
years.
called eutrophication.
But I don't want to falsely create and falsely enforce a buffer zone if the nature is in the process of eliminating that buffer zone. In other words, you could plant wetland plants all around that place to keep the buffer zone there, and nature may be just eliminating that because the whole water table has shifted. The whole area in the back there is turning into a meadow.
I mean, your yard must be the only place in Georgetown where nothing grows. I mean, I can, you know.
That's not true.
Poison ivy grows everywhere.
That's not true. You go over to 11 Gloria Road and look, they don't have any I dare you to find any poison ivy on 11 Gloria. Go over to 7 Gloria, my buddy named on the other side. I dare you to find any poison ivy over there. I
But
dare you.
if I
There's
go
none.
over to these others, there is stuff growing in
Yeah.
those areas.
They had.
There's not much. I think over at 11 Gloria, he's got one little iris.
Plants don't look at the property line and say, oh, we better not germinate on that side because, you know, that's not where we go. I mean, there's something.
Well, you're talking about poison ivy. I'm talking about poison ivy. There is no poison ivy in that entire area.
It's a general underbrush that's grown in those other lots that's just not growing in yours.
Well, 7 Gloria Road, and I've got pictures of it originally, looked exactly the way mine looks now. What happened is the owner over there, Jeffrey Plum, cut down all the trees. Then this commission made him replant trees, which he did. And since then, all that brush has grown up. But I could show you pictures of what 7 Gloria looked like before he cut those trees down. It looked exactly like mine. Exactly. It looked like a park back there. There was no shrubbery, no nothing, just great big oak trees. The exact same thing.
I mean, as I said, I'll reiterate, I mean, we're trying to work with a restoration plan to get something growing back there. And we just don't see a lot. That's really the concern.
That's not my fault. It's not my fault.
Restoration plans are managed. We don't just say, well, I don't have any responsibility.
I'm not managing a plan. I'm not managing anything. I'm just letting nature do whatever.
Restoration plan. That means we have goals, objectives, and we do things.
I did what the commission ordered me to do back then. I did everything the commission ordered me to do, and there was nothing further. So I did nothing further. I haven't even lived there for the past year. I've been out in Portland, Oregon, working out there. I'm living there.
There's generally a failure rate, correct? When we do a restoration plan,
They
so.
have to maintain above an 80%. Anything that,
Exactly.
so if it drops below that, you
So
have to
there's a
replant.
maintenance factor when there's a restoration
I think it's
plan.
for the first 3 years. You're right, that's for the first 3 years. And we maintained those three species of plants that you picked.
But we have pictures going back through that time period and it's still.
That wasn't,
Nothing.
I wasn't, I planted the three plants that you guys picked. You picked 3 plants. I bought them and I
Yeah, but there's
planted
literally
3
three
species.
3 actual
No,
plants
it
out
wasn't
there.
quantity. I'm talking about 3 species. 3 species of plants.
And none of which are out there on the property right now.
And yes, they are.
There's some
Yes, they
iris.
are. And I even
There's 2
submitted a
species.
planting plan, which you approved, and I planted it exactly where that plan called for it, and one of them still lives there. One of those species
The plan
still
is-
is there.
Can you give me a copy of that
Plan
You
is
keep
in
referencing?
failure.
You have it in your files.
I asked you if you can give me a copy of what you have that you're looking at. You keep referencing.
I don't
this
have
plan.
anything right here.
I'm not saying right now. Can you please forward
can
me a
look.
copy of it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you want the tree down, but you don't want to, you're not willing to work with us on the.
Well, is this a quid pro quo? Is that how this works?
Well, there's 2 issues going on here. You came in on a tree issue, and we have another outstanding issue which we would like to resolve too. Again, we look at it as a plan. We look at it as a resource, and we're trying to resolve it.
So what's your idea about restoration now? Now what do you want me to plant? Because that's where you're going, right? You want me to plant things? What do you want me to plant?
We would like to revisit the plan and see if we can't get it to work. If we need to put different plants, there's gotta be a reason why something's not growing there.
Talk to God then, because, I mean, I had nothing to do with it. Nothing. I mean, I stay out of that area. I don't go back there. I don't walk my dog back there.
I see big piles of leaves back there.
Yeah, there's all kinds of leaves
They kind
back
of-
there.
There's a
Most-
huge brush pile.
This is the
too.
most recent picture. That's a canoe back there being stored over the line.
Well, that canoe has been there for years. We used to have the lake right there, and we used to use that canoe, and we don't anymore.
It's not in any of the previous pictures, I guess is my point. So.
Well, you didn't take pictures of it then. That canoe has been there for years.
Well, again, I think, to me, it makes more sense to test the soil, find out what will grow there, if anything, and then we can create that restoration plan, because apparently what we had for restoration isn't working.
It's not true. It is working. This commission, I submitted a list, a huge list of plants that the commission deemed acceptable. And out of that list, this commission picked 3 species of plants. We negotiated the quantity of each 3 species. Then this commission asked for a planting plan to show where exactly each species would be planted on the property, which I submitted. And this commission approved it. And then I went and purchased those plants. I planted them exactly to that plan. One of those species has thrived. The other
Which
2
one is that?
gone. Those little irises.
And they were about that big,
Yes,
after 6 years.
yes, that's all they get. That's as big as they get.
They spread out.
They're more spreading.
That is as big as they get. They cover a good portion of that sloping hill. Yes, you can't say they didn't all live. 2 of them didn't, but that 3rd took right off.
I didn't see, I mean, I could be
Come
wrong.
out.
But
Come
I was
out.
there. I
I'll-
didn't see anything taking
I-
off out there.
I will email you. I'll show you pictures.
Show
You
me
can-
the pictures right there. What's taking off in those pictures?
So the iris is in this picture. You can see in the bottom, actually along the entire bottom.
Just a
it's the-
small area.
It's a very
just
small
this
area.
tiny little
low-
area.
yeah.
Not it. There's about like 7 or 8 clumps of it growing over probably a 30-foot area.
A lighter green, larger leaved.
But Steve, after all this time, shouldn't those plants had spread a lot further than what they are doing?
So when you
That's
look
what
at
they are.
when you look at that
Look at
that
the
time
older-
lapse of pictures, flip. I sent this around last meeting. Flip to the first picture that shows what it looked like after there was some tree cutting and some disturbance.
That
It was
plant-
4 or 5 feet high of vegetation, and as you go through it, you see the activity that's been happening. Acknowledge cutting, acknowledge burning, acknowledge activity, and now things are still not growing. You look left and right of the property and along the pond edge.
Any dates on these
It's a wall.
photographs?
There are dates.
Top of
Oh,
the-
I'm
these-
sorry.
That
Got it.
initial planting plan was only for the slope of that hill. We were never instructed to go plant way back in the woods there.
That is correct.
We were
It was a very
never,
defined area.
we were never instructed to do that. When we submitted the planting plan was for the slope of that hill only.
Where's all that?
That
And
is
we
correct.
complied with that,
Everything.
to
That
the
is
letter.
So this, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be engaging in this conversation because I didn't go there, but there's a ton of clethra between these cut down trees and the edge of the water. That was growing there perfectly in 2007.
And you go through and you can see where he cut
Right.
and burned.
And
So,
then-
so my argument is by the end, it should have rebounded. When you stop cutting, when you stop burning,
You know,
So
around here, if
it
you don't
was
grow
all
stuff, it grows,
burned
everything
off
grows.
after, this is the problem, it was burned.
in spots, not the entire area, piled up and burned. So in those spots, probably the roots were damaged and they're gone. You know, but after fires, after
But the
major
minerals
activities.
get deposited back in the soil and makes it
Stuff
quite
It comes
rich.
back more robust.
And so that is like, okay, so 11 years later, or 9 years later,
Yep.
there's still nothing growing
And
here.
along the pond, there's a very
And there's
healthy buffer.
this giant hedge of,
It's almost like you head trimmed.
buttonbush and, clethra, et cetera.
That's the same
And
on,
is this the house, are these the woods next door?
Yes,
Kind
that
of
are,
just
are
off?
very well vegetated.
So when you planted
that's on a
these-
different elevation, that's on a
When
wholly
you
different, that's on a
planted
different
these,
hill.
Mhm. Did you water them in? Did you take care of them
first
after
3
you
years, yes.
planted it all?
For 3 years, we did, yes. And after 3 years, we weren't required to, so we didn't after 3 years.
Seems like they should have been established over 3 years, but.
Well, one of them was.
What species were planted? Do you
Those
remember?
little irises, I submitted a whole list. I don't remember, it's whatever you three, go back to look at your orders, it was whatever this commission ordered. That's what we did.
There's small oak trees in here, there's clethra, there's buttonbush in the background.
But if you go look at,
And it's gone.
So the
if you look at
restoration-
11 Gloria, he's got, our hill extends right over to 11 Gloria. He's got the exact same look on his property as we have on ours. It's not like there's a ton of bushes growing on his property on that hill, and there's no bushes here.
Mr.
I am
Lord,
a little-
didn't you claim your neighbor was going over and cutting?
Yeah,
Up, like, right to the edge of or how far back was he doing that?
I don't know, he,
Was this Mr. Plum? That was a different
Yeah, that's-
enforcement issue that we
that's on the other
dealt
side,
with.
at 11 Gloria.
Oh, I see.
The two things that I know is that he was down there with his riding lawnmower regularly, probably at least once a month, And the second thing is he's back, he had been back there with, and Steve said he owns one of the same things. So it's like a wacky weeder, but instead of the string on it, it's got a saw blade on it. So that's the only thing I know of.
Steve,
But
would you normally
I
have
haven't been-
expected this vegetative edge here to start encroaching into,
After 6+ years.
yeah,
Normally, the normal process
Right.
of a forest, even if you,
Yeah.
is a natural fire, scrub brush starts coming in, all kinds of stuff comes in, it grows really
Right.
fast.
The first
Think about
picture-
Camp Den, think
first
about the
picture's like
woods at Camp Den, the understory is very rich
And that's
there.
picture one does. That was probably after a cutting. And once you cut, they sent up suckers. And that's why the first picture is so dense, because there was probably some cutting that happened. They sucker up, damage was done. That's what you'd expect after a cutting is picture one.
Yeah.
I do take your point that there is evidence in these two photographs where your point that the pond edge receded dramatically. And so that may have affected the hydrology. Would it have affected the
It would-
hydrology?
it
Although
would-
this still looks very rich
Yeah,
here.
it would turn it more, the hydrology would change towards a more upland
Right,
community.
and you're still gonna, with
And-
upland, you're still gonna
and-
fill in with
yeah.
all kinds
And
of.
it also
upland
takes
species.
years and years and years, it takes, I don't know the exact scientific date, 10, 15, 20 years for there to be a real change in that. You're still gonna see vegetation, it's just gonna change over time. We're talking 6 years, there's still a wetland on the bottom edge and the rest is upland. That was upland before, if you look at wetland delineation, this
Could
is
you
all
see
upland.
the wetland from here? Because
It's
it's
wet-
just a
Well,
sea of green.
So when you
What
actually
was
look
that
at the plot
beautiful-
plan,
That used to be a 90-acre lake, and there's about half of that
Well,
right
if
now.
you look at the
It's
plot
been
plan-
it's been a full decade since that dam went in.
Yeah.
if you look at the wetland delineation of this
More than
property,
that.
technically,
Yeah.
the left side of that property
What
is
are you saying,
a
Ted?
wetland that he's cutting.
25 plus years.
Since the dam was put in? No.
Conversation, please, I can't.
No.
Sorry,
When we were there, when we bought the place in 2002, the water was right up to the edge of that hill.
When did?
And after that, you guys put
I've
in the
lived there,
dam.
I've lived in the area longer than that, and the dam's been there
Discuss
before
the
I
difference
moved
in
there.
the-
Well, you changed the whole hydrology of it because the level of the lake went way down,
When
way
was the
down.
dam installed?
I don't know, I thought we were just, Carl and I were just talking about that.
When, Carl?
Long before the nineties, there was there's been
Okay.
I mean, they modified the dam a number of years ago, but there's been a dam there for a long
They
time.
made that modification, then that lowered, there's no arguing that the level of the water of the lake has receded dramatically over the past decade.
Yeah,
That
they-
wouldn't
It
change.
doesn't-
You could drain the pond tomorrow. It's gonna
Still
change
a
the
wetland.
plant community. It's a direction we shouldn't be going down. You could dry that pond up tomorrow. It's not gonna change the vegetation. It's gonna change what type of vegetation is there.
Exactly.
You go from
Actually,
wetland to
there's
upland.
been
So
a dam
I'm
there since
thinking
the
that we need
1800s.
a different planting plan.
Well,
A different dam.
so what did the town of Georgetown do to lower the level of the lake?
It's called a drought.
No, it's not, you haven't had a drought for 10 years.
They have the ability to change that, change the level of the lake with the way the
But they
the
haven't,
dams.
but they haven't.
We manage it for high flow. We do not manage it below that. We
The
actually
level-
can't. drop.
that lake of Pentucket Pond is about half the size of what it used to be.
Of course, it's
dam?
it's eutrophying, it's filling in, it's a natural
Yeah,
process.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's sand back there, there's all kinds of
Well, it's-
dirt coming in and,
It's happening to all the ponds around here. It's happening to Rock. It's happening to Crane Pond. There's virtually no pond anymore in these areas because the vegetation fills in. Eventually, if you look at swamps that are on the edges of ponds, at one time they were part of the pond. Basically, what things start to fill in, soils fill in. Then you have a swampy area. Then you have some small trees and stuff that start to grow and they buttress, and basically the roots kind of hold the dirt, and eventually you have a swamp.
and I think eventually you'll have a meadow back there. It may take, I don't
Maybe
know
in
how
100
long.
years you will.
Maybe 50 years or 20 years or
Right
who knows.
now, it's got that beautiful pinky purple flower.
That's an
Oh,
invasive. Loose-
invasive
Loose
thing.
strife, loose strife.
But
Loose
that,
strife, yeah.
but that
full of
grows
loose
in
strife.
really
What?
damp,
Mucky.
wet, mucky, so it's not that it's not a wetland anymore. It may not be a lake, but it's still a wetland.
I mean,
so-
it's, I think we're talking upland, dry, wetland, ponds, receding. It's beside the point. This is jurisdictional area. There's a no-cut line. No matter what the soil, the water does.
I mean,
From one
from-
extreme to the other, there should be vegetation.
I mean,
That's the
there's if we have the wrong vegetation, then we need to revisit. Something should be growing
But
on.
the, but the, but the
Right.
restoration project before, and I agree with this, was only done on the slope, because that was the only area that was really not vegetated. Everything else, if you look at the '06 picture, everything else was vegetated. Why would we ask them to plant trees in an area that's 100% vegetated?
We
So we
wouldn't.
did, we focused on the shoulder of that slope, because that's what we're worried about erosion, and that was a buffer, no cut, plant this shoulder. So those plants, most of them are gone, and all the vegetation that was behind it is now gone. You know, that just, from a.
The only
from
thing
a-
I cut now is my lawn. That's it. I don't
Well,
even
you-
cut
you
that slope.
acknowledge
I don't
the
even
neighbor
go
cuts it.
down, I don't even go down that slope.
But you acknowledge your neighbor was coming across the property
Well,
line to
he's-
cut the back.
he's-
That's
that-
still your property.
That's him
still-
down there on the, he
But
takes his,
But you said he comes onto your property and does it. You acknowledge
well,
that
before he
someone
put,
has.
yeah, before he put up that fence, I saw him down there with his, you know, his lawnmower.
Well,
In fact, we have video of it.
this discussion is getting a little circular.
From my standpoint, my recommendation is a professionally drawn restoration plan with a 3-year professional review of it. Again, we can go do soil. If he's claiming he didn't put anything down, then that's a waste of money. If he wants to eventually pay to have this all done, and it doesn't last 3 years, then, you know, he has to replant it. Again, we could go and do the soil testing. I would just recommend a full restoration plan. A wetland scientist pick the plants to the spot. There's some wetlands that have to be restored. There's some buffer uplands that have to be restored. Professional plan installed within a period of time.
I don't wanna pay for this. I don't wanna pay for this. I mean, if you,
Again,
I
if
have
you
no,
wanna replant
I
the
have
area.
no objection to your doing it if that's what you wanna do.
So you want-
But I just don't wanna pay for it.
You want the town to pay for the restoration of your property? Is that?
Well, you're the guys that want it. I don't care what happens back there, as long as I don't go back there, I feel like that's enough. As long as I have nothing to do back there and let nature take its course, then I don't care what happens. If you want to do whatever you want
So,
back there, then fine.
Quote unquote, you want nature to take its course, now, but you wanna take trees down. You
Well,
just-
those two I don't wanna take every tree, I wanna take the two
So
trees
you're
that are a problem.
Contradicting yourself. You said, let nature take its course. If
And
that's the
also the
philosophy.
Talking
And also
about the
the history-
wetland restoration.
And also the history of this area, you say you want to leave it alone, but yet we have many pictures of you cutting and burning the area historically.
That was a long time ago. That was a long time ago. That was a decade ago. A decade ago.
6.
But it hasn't
And
come back.
Just,
And it hasn't come back.
But you created the problem. So why shouldn't you be a player and help and resolve
But I
the
did, you know, we dealt with this back then. We
Just for
dealt
the
with
one
this
slope.
back then.
Just for the one slope.
You know, I
Back
feel
then,
like I'm getting
back.
punished now twice. I mean, because in 3 years, you could come back and do this again. In 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, for the rest of my life, you could keep doing this over. I don't want anything to do with it. I mean, I made a mistake, you know, many years ago. I paid for it. I did exactly what this commission ordered me to do on it. The commission approved everything, and then I thought the issue was done.
Believe me,
Now it's coming up over and over again.
Believe me, I have better things to do than spend my time doing
I
this.
don't- you know,
What
that's
I-
why
what
I'm
what I'd like to do is just come to a corrective action that some things naturally grow back there that stay.
I don't
And
care
then
what-
you can ignore it.
I don't care what grows back there or what doesn't. I just don't want to have to pay for it. I don't want to have to pay for it. I already did that. I already hired a wetland scientist years back and had Oak Engineering in here and all of that stuff in here and presented these plans to you and you approved them all way back. I don't want to have to do that all over again. It cost me $30,000 last time. I don't want to do this every 5 years. And I've done nothing back there. And now you're coming back and saying, oh, I got to do this all over again and make me pay for it. If you want to plant whatever you want back there, go ahead. I don't care. You can do whatever you want. I don't want to have to pay for it. I mean, another 10 years, you'll be making me pay for it again. I don't want to pay for it. I already did it once.
Steve, if we went back for the enforcement order, as far as the enforcement order,
The
and it-
enforcement order that said no cut, no disturb back there.
yep, and then if we went to the failed Restoration Act, the failed restoration plan,
Yep. I mean,
as far as fines go.
as far back as, you know, you could pick the date somewhere in between all of these, you know, 2010, when
Mhm.
some activity was being done. We have evidence that nothing is growing here. You could go back probably to 2010,
Okay.
as far as that goes. And there was an enforcement order in place at the time, pretty much saying no cut, you know, no disturb, leave it alone, let it be natural.
But then there was cutting and disturbing?
The picture evidence and the
Yeah.
evidence
No,
on the
we haven't
ground
cut or
suggests that.
disturbed anything.
Well,
back
I
there.
see, I saw
Nothing.
evidence of piles of leaves and
Nothing.
brush back there, so I guess the squirrels dragged it all out there, right?
Listen to me.
We
So I
haven't
guess
cut- we haven't
to
cut-
your point, there is technically an outstanding enforcement action on this property.
Mhm.
Now, we haven't been chasing it. Often what happens is, 5 years ago, you go and you discover this. We kind of are catching up, getting a little catch up here. You could say that we went out, you know, if we went out 5 years ago, when these pictures were taken, as far as, I was not really doing a time lapse at the time. I was
Mhm.
going out looking at other things. You could go back, you know, 5 years and say that there was cutting being done and, you know, picture evidence of it and tie that into the enforcement action. And again, that's, you know, 5 years at whatever the enforcement
300.
action. Typically, it's max 300.
Per day.
I don't know what that one is in particular, but it's around there.
Well, for me, the bottom line is, I have no problem in you wanting to plant anything you want back there. I don't care. And I don't care what you want to do back there. I really don't.
Well,
I just don't want to pay for it again.
It's
This
private
is
property.
what I'm going down. You can either do that, or we can go down this route where it's $100,000 a year, per year, that it's
Well, then we
not-
go back to court. I mean, I already took this commission to court the first time. I spent so much money that the town's lawyer quit.
No, they shunted it
Yes,
back
they
to
did.
us and said.
They remanded it.
He quit.
That's not really what happened.
Yeah, he applied to the court to be taken off the case. He was putting it, I don't want to have to go back to court over this.
Well, I don't think it should, you know, again, you're really not willing to give it all in anything, you just like, you know.
I am. I don't care what you do back there. I just don't want to pay for it.
Steve,
I mean, I
do-
paid $30,000 the last time.
Do we
I
have-
don't want to have to do this every 5 years. No, I don't want to pay for it again.
Do we have any
And you have no-
precedents? Oh, I'm sorry.
You have no explanation of why nothing's going on.
No, I wasn't even living here the past year. I can prove I was living
But
out
this
of
goes
state
back
for a year.
Several years, though.
It's still your property,
The issue
though.
goes back several years.
It doesn't matter. I am not doing anything back there. If a leaf or a seed falls and implants itself, fine. If something happens to that leaf or that seed, I don't know about it. I don't care what happens to it. I stay out of there. To me, that's just the woods. And I just stay out of it. I don't care what grows
I
back
like where
there.
you were going. You were asking a question about precedence.
Yeah.
Because that moves things along. was the question?
That was my question.
Yeah.
Did we have any precedents where similar situations happen with restoration plans that
Failed.
fail?
I can show you pictures, sand and gravel. Laura and I, when I first started, Laura and I went out to do an inspection of some vernal pools they created. A jungle. Slightly different hydrology, slightly different tree structure. It was a jungle. You know, over your head. Well, it's not hard to be over Laura's head, but it was over my head. It was pretty tall. These always they go one direction. It's Carl's Point. You know, stuff grows. It takes over.
If you do the hydrology right in like a restoration, and a lot of times the engineers don't, they do a quickie and it doesn't get fed properly and then everything dies. If it's done right, they work well. I mean,
So maybe we need a different solution. Maybe, I mean, that restoration plan was full of, you know, white pine and various upland species. And if this has become much more of an upland, then we need to kind of work with what it has decided to be.
But even if you planted the wrong things, I've seen restoration projects where you plant the wrong stuff. They die, but the native stuff takes over. The restoration on on this project, keep in mind, it was just the bank, that slope. The restoration wasn't the back area. It was literally a 10-foot by 100-foot stretch. So we keep talking, oh, the restoration didn't take. It was just that one strip. The other thousands of square feet was not part of the restoration. It has nothing to do with taking or not taking. We never planted anything.
As a question, oh wait, have we established that that area was burned, the vegetation was burned off of that area?
In spots,
I'm
not
sorry.
not the whole
Okay.
area, just in spots. So you would expect to have not as
What
much
else
burn
could
in
have
spot.
caused the natural vegetation to fail in that area? As a natural process?
I mean, even if other than radiation,
I'm sorry,
chemical,
I don't
mean,
know.
those
You're
are,
asking a good question. My knowledge is it's herbicide, it's some chemical, some human activity. If it was a global or global warming or acid rain, you'd see it everywhere.
Or
The
how
fact
about a
that-
change in soil, hydrology,
Something like
but
whatever?
then something else just fills in. Again, it's dominates, you know, survival of the fittest. So even if the
Right.
wetland species die,
Ferns, you would
something else
expect
just
to see
Nature hates a
something
void.
back
And
there.
it takes years. It
You know,
takes
I mean,
Exactly.
I don't want you to think that this place looked like a jungle, and then I burned it all down, and then it's been cleared since then. We had a couple of bushes, there were several bushes, you know, that I burned. But that was it. It wasn't, there's probably, I don't know how many tens of thousands of square feet back there. It's probably half an acre back there. And that half an acre more or less looks exactly the way it does today. I mean, every year a ton of leaves come out of those oak trees. We've got like 100 oak trees there, and not a whole hell of a lot grows with all those leaves. If you go and stick your finger in that pile of leaves, that's about 2 inches deep at least, or 6 inches deep of leaves back there. There's not a whole lot that grows with those leaves. There never has been. And 7 Gloria Road next door, I've got pictures of what it looked like. It was exactly the same look on their property until that guy cut down all of his oak trees. And then stuff started growing like crazy. But with that canopy there of those 100 and some odd oak trees and all those leaves coming down, nothing much has ever been growing back there.
But that picture shows otherwise.
No, that picture shows,
Originally,
that,
the original picture.
And the science shows otherwise, you know.
that picture shows mostly a few bushes at the bottom of our hill.
and then to compound the problem because of the drought. Even if you had some sort of
Yeah,
plant mix out there, right now,
exactly.
nothing's going to survive right now.
Exactly.
You do it late fall, ideal time, late fall,
Well,
early
this
spring.
is even going to be an unusual.
I know,
fall
no, that's a
because-
valid point, but you always
Because
aim for
we're
your best
so
target
far
date.
behind in the water flow that.
So we are going on this one, we have a lot of other business to do.
Well, what can we decide about the tree, which is why I came here to begin with?
So I heard that the branch, 100% okay
I
with
think the
cutting.
commission
That's what I
agrees that the
heard.
branch can come down so far.
Can I break it down to 1 leader and the other leader? What's the thought on the leader that had the branch break off of?
Stay, because it's stabilizing the entire tree, and 2/3 of it is above the break, and it's
You're-
healthy.
Your only
May
two
I
options
ask,
either.
is that more of an, and I haven't been there, let me just qualify again.
You're welcome
However,
to come
if
out.
I have a large amount, a heavy amount of tree above a weak spot, To me, that's like weight on a fulcrum.
But you'd see at some point that there would be, you know, a little death occurring in as far as the leaves
I'm
go.
talking about it, not slowly dying. I'm talking about it
Traumatic break.
snapping, a traumatic break
It's
under the
not-
weight of
If
the
it-
It
top,
wasn't
the
that
canopy.
big
If it were pine, I'd
That's
say,
a
yeah.
100-foot tall oak tree, probably weighs at least 4 to 6 tons. That thing is huge.
Okay, so going with Laura's, we're talking options, right? It's leave the tree, cut the branch, or take the tree down. If you put 3 or 4 oaks to replace it as mitigation, I'm looking at the
It'll take
mitigation plan.
200 years for them to
True.
to
But
replace
I'm
that.
talking, trying to resolve this within the next 10
You're-
years.
you're-
Let them start growing. In the time it takes us to make
Your
this
choice
decision,
is
they'd
either
be
to
growing.
take the branch down or take all the tree down. If you take one side of the tree down, the other will fall.
So I agree.
Yeah, but I think that right leader will, like you're saying, eventually come
And-
down,
and when
because there is a lot of weight above that weak spot in the
And
tree.
even when that does happen, then I agree that the left side will get weakened in the long term. But when that happens, you can always then take that other leader down. Say it never happens, to your argument. There's no harm in leaving that right one up, because if that top of the tree does break off, it's heading towards the pond. There's no harm, there's no damage. It's habitat value. It's probably a good thing.
I did hear this gentleman's concern about his children.
On the other side, correct. Correct. So
It's
again,
the other
if the
side of the
tree,
tree.
it's the other side of the tree. If this one breaks, it's gonna take a while for this one to.
So the weak one with the weak spot is head towards the pond,
Correct.
and that is.
No, it isn't, it's the other way.
No,
No,
the
it's-
weakened one is heading
The
towards the
weakened one
pond.
is heading towards the pond
Yeah.
and the
The
neighbors.
perfectly good one is over the sandbox. So are 15 other trees, by the way. This whole edge, every single tree can hit that sandbox. Every single one of them.
Yeah, but the other trees aren't gonna come down. I don't have, I mean, if they were gonna come down in that last storm, they would have come down, but
So
they didn't.
A beefy, a restoration plan of the entire disturbed area, including some larger trees to mitigate this bigger tree.
We didn't disturb that area. That area has not been disturbed.
So let's
We're
not disturb
trying
it.
to work with you. We're trying to work with you. And it would be very lovely if you would actually come towards us a little bit as well, please.
I don't mind, like I said, I'll say it again. I mean, you can plant whatever trees, you can plant an entire forest back there. I don't
So
care.
you want us to plant the trees too?
I don't wanna pay for it. I mean, this thing could run me another
So do you want the town
$30,000.
to cut the tree down too? Do we have to pay for that?
No, I'll pay for that.
Oh,
So
really?
The previous cost, we keep hearing 30,000, that was the permitting process for the addition that the applicant wanted to put on their house. The previous cost of what we actually asked him to do was 3 or 4 concrete posts, which he put in himself, and a few plants. I don't know how much that actually costs, but it wasn't $30,000.
That's
The
not what I-
the permitting process, big picture, I have no idea how much that goes for, and that probably gets very expensive for, different departments.
The 30,000 was for the lawyers and the lawsuit and the resolution of that lawsuit, which ended up being that planting plan.
You filed lawsuit, we didn't file lawsuit, so
Yeah.
you voluntarily did that, so you voluntarily hired an attorney to sue the town,
It cost,
and then it cost you a lot of money, now that's my fault?
that included Oak Engineering, included a wetland scientist, included all the filings that we did here. It cost, you've got all of those files still sitting in your files, including that planting plan, all of that stuff. I don't wanna have to pay for this again, and then what if your new trees or new plants don't grow, then you're gonna come and make me do this again in 5 more years, and I'll have to pay for it again and again and again. I don't wanna keep doing that. If something grows back there, let it grow, I don't care.
Let it be natural, as you said.
Well, if it was natural, it would be growing.
You can come inspect it anytime you want.
I kinda feel like we're going circular.
Yeah.
Big
Just-
time.
Sorry.
I just don't wanna pay for a car,
later-
I
the
don't
later
wanna
it
pay
gets.
for it.
It's not, the branch that came down is a large branch, but it's not like half of a tree that came down.
But so,
I'm not.
but you weren't there, so.
I
but
haven't
the counter
seen
to
it.
that one is
I was
there was
just
some
asking.
damage into the trunk of the tree. I think
Right,
you
it
pointed that out.
ripped.
So again, I've seen branches like that stay up, trees like that for another 50 years.
Well, there were other oak
Yeah.
trees on the site that had branches that had ripped off, that had healed,
They
and
heal
were
amazing.
still.
Not that big, though. Not that
So
big.
the concept,
That
it
thing
could
was
stay
a
up for
huge
another
branch.
500 years, it could fall down tomorrow. No one here can say, but all I know is it's
Right,
leaning
why-
over the pond.
Why don't I agree to take down the branch only? Only that branch. I'll notify Steve, I mean, it's probably, what, a 2-foot cut just to cut off that branch. It's already pretty much ripped off the tree. I'll notify Steve when we can have, you know, some tree service come over and do it, make it convenient for Steve's time, and he can come and monitor it, that's fine. I will only take down that one branch. It's already hanging at a perpendicular 90-degree angle to the tree. And then we'll leave the rest of the trees alone, and I'm not gonna do anything in the back whatsoever. I'm not gonna plant anything. You guys wanna do anything, go, you're welcome to, but I don't wanna pay for it. I don't wanna have anything to do with it. I don't go down there now anyway.
So can we table that part of the conversation for now? Can
I'm
we
in
come
agreement
to
with-
an
I'm in agreement
agreement
with that.
about the branch?
I'm in agreement with that.
I agree. And let's table the restoration conversation
And
for- until let's brainstorm some sort
Well,
of,
let's add a little piece to
something.
that. If
They can
your,
monitor it,
if
though.
your neighbor
Right.
is going on there, we need to stop that. If your
He's got
neighbor,
a fence there. You saw his fence, Carl, right? He put that fence in there, so now he stays on his side of the fence. I don't know what you guys wanna do about his fence, but that's none of my business. That's between you and him.
I just have a hard time with letting it go, to be honest with you, because we have acknowledgement that vegetation is being cut down there by the neighbor on his property. He wants to say he did nothing, but he acknowledges that someone is.
I didn't mean never talk about it again and let it go.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, I meant
For this
table it
evening.
for now,
For
for
this
this
evening. That
evening.
allows you to
Let's
immediately
move
address
forward
that branch.
with the branch.
I'm good
And
with that.
let's revisit our thinking
And
about the restoration with maybe cleaner thinking at a different time.
I can also go out there, like set up a monthly schedule to go out and take pictures and carry those pictures forward. I think it'd be.
You can come out, all of you are welcome to come anytime you want and go back there and look, whether we're home or not. I work for Accenture. I'm a manager for Accenture. I happen to be in Boston this summer, but I think in September, I mean, I've worked worldwide. The past year, I've been working out Portland General Electric in Portland, Oregon, and I think they're gonna be sending me to Baltimore for the next year. So I just want to sort of get through this, because after this meeting, I think it's going to be pretty inconvenient for me to be coming back for any further meetings.
What happens to your property while you're gone? Is someone else living there and managing it?
My wife and my kids there. But I just move out of state.
I think
I'm
to
sorry,
go
I thought you
work-
meant you were all gone.
I think
Okay.
you think that, you know, we're trying to punish you. I'd rather not have to have you come in at all and just, you know, you can do your thing. All we're trying to do is, you know, try to come to a resolution to say, how can we improve it? It had a lot of growth, and we're trying to figure out why it doesn't. That, I'm not trying to say you did it all, you did this and do that and have to pay for everything. What I'm trying to say is there was an enforcement action, we tried to implement a restoration, for whatever reason it didn't work, and we're trying to fix it. I'm sure in your job you have to fix things.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
that's what
we do.
we're trying to do too.
Yeah, you know, and I don't have a problem with that, Carl. I don't. I just don't want to have to shell out more money, and I'm afraid of having to keep shelling out money again and again and again and again in the coming years here if this next restoration plan fails for whatever reason. You know, and I just don't want to put myself in a position where we have to keep shelling out money for, you know, maybe your restoration plan this time will cost me $1,000 or $2,000 or $5,000, but maybe the next one will be 10 times that much. I don't know, because you'll say, oh, that one didn't work, so now we got to try something else.
Maybe you'd be invested in actually having it work then.
I'm not here a lot of the time, number one. And number two, I plant it, you know, and I think the law says I have to maintain
I
it for
think
3 years, and that's all I
The
do.
mystery is whether we did a restoration plan or not.
We did.
No, understand what I'm saying. Whether I did nothing at all, weeds and other growth just starts growing. I mean, that's why if you go away for a month in your yard, it turns into a forest. I mean, there's a reason. I mean, things grow.
I've noticed back there that when the wind blows the leaves off of a spot, then you get stuff that comes up. You'll see grasses there. And you even see that little fence my neighbor put up. On my side of the fence, the grass is like this. And his side is down there like that.
That's really the crux
Where
of the
the
issue.
leaves are,
that's all.
there's nothing growing.
And maybe that's the issue. I mean, if you cover everything in leaves, it takes a while, takes a few years for those leaves to basically, if you make like a giant compost out there, it'll take a
Right.
few years for those things to basically dissolve back into the
That's not
soil.
And I
just-
think we
that's not
need
two
to
leaves,
think
that's
about this for a
this
little
much
while
of leaves.
longer. And really,
You're welcome
having
to
you
come look.
come towards us and say, I will only take care of the branch is very helpful.
Yeah.
And that has given us the space to say that we'll think about the rest of it. So thank you for helping us,
So-
and we will go away and think of a way to resolve the situation, which good for you and good for us.
So you
So
are-
thank you for
You're welcome.
being,
I invite you to come out and take a look anytime you want. You don't need to make an appointment. You're welcome on the property anytime you want. Just walk back there, take any pictures and look around anytime you want. That goes for any of you.
lovely, thank you.
So-
So can you communicate with Steve when you are going to or have taken the branch down? What do you prefer?
Yes,
Before
Before?
notification.
Okay.
I will. I will coordinate it with Steve. I'll set it up with some tree service, Valley Tree, I think. They're right around the corner.
So just so we're formal, I'll entertain a motion to approve Mr. Lowe to remove
Cut
the
the
branch.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we allow Mr. Lowe to remove the branch that is in question, but leave the rest of the tree standing.
Second.
I agree.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to allow Mr. Lowe to remove the broken branch, but leave the rest of the tree standing, if I heard that correctly. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All abstaining? Motion
Thank you.
carries.
Thank you. Steve, I'll
Thank you.
call Valley Tree tomorrow.
Thank you.
I will, as soon as they get back to me, I will inform you and we'll
Excellent.
schedule it.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carl, do you mind if I take you over and go through some business, kind of direct
Yeah,
things a bit?
let's get moving.
Bills to pay. This is a BSC group. This is for the wetland review of 66 Parish Road that's been going on. It's a partial payment, $2,232. This is the third-party money that was given to us. It's not actually, we're not paying for it, we're just paying
Okay.
for the services. There's a typo on this. Plumbing and heating for Camp Dennison. This is plumbing of the bathhouse. It's a partial payment, $23,330. This is out of CPC. Townsend Oil. Propane. Oil.
Camp Den,
Camp Dennison,
is it? That's my guess.
$537. White Street Paint, Camp Dennison, $275. Georgetown Light, Camp Dennison, about $250. Electric invoice, Camp Dennison, $52 for some fuses and some maintenance on the seals of one of the blowers. And that's it.
I'll
It's a short
entertain a motion to pay the bills.
I can't do it.
Anyone wants to make a
Mr.
motion?
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I move that we pay the bills as stated by Steve.
I second.
It's a motion, and it's been seconded to approve the bills as read by Steve. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All abstaining.
Yes.
Let's see, we have minutes, and we have other, a deed, parcel F deed? Parcel F deed, really?
So the minutes, the May 19th one is not ready to be voted on. The June and July ones are, if everyone's read them and.
I didn't get
I
them.
didn't get
May.
No, we
No.
didn't get them.
All we got was May.
Sorry.
Reversed.
Sorry, we got May and May still needs work.
Okay.
I tried to, go online and, download there were so many question marks because I couldn't download it, but I emailed Janet this morning and she did have it, so.
Okay,
I'll
awesome.
go over and get it to you next week.
So no minutes, sorry.
No minutes. Okay. So we have a deed to sign?
Yes.
Is that true?
Indeedy.
So this is the,
Parcel F.
remember parcel F?
No. How could I forget it?
We discussed that.
This is the parcel F deed. To be signed. We've already voted on this many, many, many times. It's more of an administrative act.
So we don't need to vote again?
No,
To sign the deed as read by Steve?
please don't do that to me.
I never been on here.
These are the order of conditions that you approved tonight for Canterbury Drive. This is that septic system, both the state and the local application. This is the certification of compliance, the closeout document for the American Legion Park, that playground that was permitted and built. They're 100% done.
Do we need to make a motion, please?
Nope, all administrative. Excuse me? No, the second one we're going to, but they won't, they have to go on the other side. So that got continued. Hang in there, guys, we're almost done. We have a bunch of appointments. I'll just hand them off and make a motion to appoint.
Appointments now? Seems kind of odd.
Yeah,
In June?
yearly. So it's Camp Dennison and the Open Space Committee.
Didn't we just, okay, they're staggered, all right.
They're staggered, yeah.
All right.
We try to have them staggered
Yeah,
so that we don't have
they should be staggered.
huge changeover.
So just read them out.
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Peter Burns to the Open Space Committee, Kimberly Dowling to the Camp Dennison Committee, John LaCicero to the Camp Dennison Committee, and George Langland, a member of the Camp Dennison Committee.
Second.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to appoint a number of people to the Camp Dennison Committee and the Open Space Committee. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining? Motion carries.
So that is it for kind of relevant business stuff. There's also a staff after-action report comment on the agenda. This is more
Yes.
related to myself and kind of disclosing what happened on my property in Haverhill a few months ago. Just for the record, I've talked to a bunch of you about this, but Carl and I both thought it would be appropriate to have a quick discussion about it on the record. So I live in Haverhill. I hired a contractor to do some work a number of months ago. While they were doing the work, they encroached on a wetland buffer that it was not my intention to go into this buffer. I did not direct them to go into this buffer. But when you're not home, stuff happens, just like applicants before us every day. I was notified of this by the agent. We met on site, we came up with a plan. I submitted a kind of a buffer restoration plan. I went to a Haverhill Conservation Committee meeting where they approved my proposal. And at this point, I'm going to be replanting the area next month. I don't foresee any issues with that. Everything that we agreed to is very reasonable, and I've been moving forward according to the timeline they gave me. I don't have any issues with it. I don't see any problems related to my job here, but I think it's also important for you guys to be aware and, more of a public acknowledgement.
It just goes to show the point that, we as public officials need to make sure we follow the rules and regulations too. We're not exempt. And on our own properties and things we do, we are held to a little higher scrutiny. I did converse directly with the Haverhill Conservation agent, based on what they told me. I feel a violation did occur, and they indicated that Steve is working very cooperatively with them. They don't think it was purposeful. They did issue an enforcement order just like they would, that we would do. They're handling it exactly the same way we would handle a situation like that. They're not giving Steve any special privileges because he's an official here in Georgetown. And, they are planning to, keep me up to speed to ensure this gets closed out. So, I wanted to make sure that, an action like that doesn't affect Steve's ability and our ability to enforce wetlands regulations because, someone here is not following them. So it's important, again, that, you know, we all are cognizant of that. And that, you know, other people are looking, and this actually does relate to a case that we had recently. So, you know, other people, you know, based on our decisions, will scrutinize us personally. So they may look up what you do or your property, Google your property, or anything of that nature. So just be cognizant of that.
Do I remember that you had clearly marked where you wanted the work to be done, which was well away from the resource area, and that when the work was done, it went over the boundaries that you had laid down?
Kind of, my original was like a half moon shape, and I staked it out, talked to them about it. When they came in, you know, they kind of bowed it out. It's like a you know, balloon, when you squeeze a balloon, it kind of pops out. It's a little appendage, and if you look at this plot plan, and you know, that additional area just exactly jumps into the buffer where I shouldn't have been. And again, I acknowledged it happened. You know, it was not intentional. And again, my plan was to go to them end of the season and come up with a plan and restoration plan, pretty much what I did. And you know how life gets busy. I'll do it next week, and.
But you'd clearly marked it, so.
Correct. Those are under dirt.
The only issue,
Yeah.
But,
yeah,
you know,
the
again,
only issue is that
Again, just
your
like we talked
property.
about, you're the property owner, even if you
Exactly.
hire a contractor and do something inappropriate, you're still
Full-
obligated to
I'm
address
fully
it.
responsible. I did not, I mean, I am explaining what happened so that you know what happened. I'm not shirking responsibility. It happened on my property. I should have been taking the day off and held the guy's hand doing the work, but I didn't. So I'll deal with it now.
Anyone have any questions? You know, again, it's being addressed exactly as we would handle it, and that they were very forthright with me in discussions of the case, so, again, it's on public record in Haverhill, so.
It was a very, very small encroachment. I think there was an article in the paper about it.
Yeah,
It was a
Yeah.
very, very small encroachment.
Was it 10 square feet, something like that, 5 by 2,
And-
about the size of me?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and,
But I do have a question about that, because if you go on Google Earth, you can't see something that detailed based on Google
Well,
Earth.
from discussions with Haverhill, the individual involved did a lot more than Google Earth. They
So
actually
they-
went to the town hall and looked up actual plans for his property. In other words, they pulled the public record and
But-
actually tried to compare what they found.
They would have had to have been on his property illegally in order to have seen it, correct?
all the information that you can get the complaint, the person that submitted this to the town and the state saying what happened, you can ask
Okay.
for that.
All right. Because that's
Everything
what
that
makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, that, I was too, when I first heard about it, I actually asked Haverhill for the complaint, cause I'm like, who was on my property and when?
Mhm.
And it kinda made me very uncomfortable.
What was
Everything they had looks like, nothing, it's not like there's a picture showing like, you know, right over it. Everything was Google Earth, very
What was
clearly
what was
Google
said
Earth.
to me was the person had spent so much time looking at the file on his property that they thought that they were actually working for him as a consultant.
To do some work on my property, it was that detailed.
That they spent like hours looking at the plans and seeing if they could
Mm.
find a flaw. And actually, it's my understanding that they actually tried to look at our properties too and see if we had filed anything, and,
Is Google Earth real time?
no, but they
I
do
didn't think
update, they
so.
do update it almost, I mean,
No, I
if you look at
looked.
pictures, every year there'll be new pictures on there. They do quite often.
Well, I looked, and since we bought our property, it hasn't been updated since last winter.
It's
I'd
probably
say.
about every year you'll see an update.
It captured what happened.
It did.
To the point, yeah.
That's,
It was done in a time frame. I don't know how often they do it, but it captured the activity.
well, the key is it was an accidental,
Mhm.
and you acknowledge it, and you're correcting it.
I mean, and that's
Good
the,
job.
and that's the lesson learned, that, you
Yeah.
know, it's better to
Oh, wait.
notify them right away if there's something wrong.
Chicken coops need permits? Movable,
Chicken
right?
coops?
I have a chicken coop. I didn't get a permit
I
for it.
used
Now
to
I'm
have-
nervous.
yeah. Well, I was doing work on my garage, replacing shingles a couple weeks ago, and the guy says, no, he says, "Did you get a building permit?" I said, so I ran down, well, you saw me here.
I tried to get him to double the fees. Yeah, remember that. So that's
So-
all I have, unless you guys have any other kind of
And again, I have,
questions or concerns.
the town administrator is aware of it, Again, I did the outreach to Haverhill Conservation Commission. I mean, the goal is to do the due diligence and investigate, and again, to make sure, we as a commission aren't above the law. Again,
Oh.
we're trying to enforce it. If we're trying to skirt wetlands protection laws, it makes it really hard for us to enforce them on other people in the town,
sure.
so.
The only thing I can see this impacting going forward, and when it happens, I will fully disclose it, the person that filed the complaint, it was a, not anonymous, the person who put their name in, they do come before the commission from time to time. I have no problem working with this person in the future. I'll be professional and I'll do my job. But they do come before the commission. To me, it's a perception of a conflict of interest. If that's something that I can abstain from being the agent for the meeting, I don't know how that works. If, say, they reported you, you might say, I want to abstain on this case.
Well, I
because
think in
I
those,
have a connection to this.
in those situations, you would acknowledge that there is an issue, that there had been an issue
Mhm.
for disclosure.
Mhm.
And
Just
you
disclose it.
basically said, I feel I can do this without being biased, but I'm disclosing this, that there has been an
'Cause
issue.
there's 2 projects right now under that person's name. Eventually, they're going to have to request a certification of compliance that I'll do the review on, so it's not.
And then if you feel you can't, then you have to delegate it to, the commission itself to
Susan,
do that.
Be the agent next week?
There was a gentleman here who mentioned about the condition of Laughlin Brook, about
Yes, Mr. Epstein.
being a problem.
Yeah.
It has trash or whatever it was, debris.
Vegetation debris, so woody debris. His concern is fires.
Yeah, so what's do we have a responsibility to maintain the lands that we own? Attractive nuisance, that
Yeah.
type of thing?
We have kind
Wouldn't
of
that be
policies and
disturbing?
procedures. We don't go and prevent forest fires by removing dead vegetation. That's just something that
That's what-
most people, even in Massachusetts, no one does that. Are we good at maintaining our trails and our parking and our access? We're not really good at that. We need to improve on that.
I think we have
But
some-
what he was complaining about is not something that we have ever managed.
Yeah, we have some CPC money, and I'd actually like to see as a project, there's an entrance to Lufkin's Brook that needs to be reopened up and,
Yep.
and some brush cleared out of there. And actually, that ties in with some funds, we have some CPC for the community gardens too.
I think Susan Drew and I are meeting with Peter Durkee in the next 2
First of
weeks.
September, yeah.
And very shortly, just talk about the community gardens, and I want to drive down to Lufkin's and look at that parking area while we're there. So we know what we're not good at. We know we're not good at, trail maintenance, signage, trails, maintaining them, marking them, getting a map. Those are things we're working on. As far as clearing it to prevent fires, that's, we don't have fire roads anymore. That's kind of an old mentality
Well-
about managing land, and that's not really relevant in New England. It might be relevant in certain areas of this country,
Well,
but not in New
This
England.
comment about the water department being a better steward of the land than we are.
Yeah, they, in that particular parcel in question, there's no trail access, there's no trail network around it. It butts up against water department land. The water department does nothing. They don't prevent fires, they don't do any of these activities, they do less than we do. When we do stuff, we try to get passive recreation in there. We try to get people to go out there. Water department,
In fact,
they say stay
we
out.
We end up managing part of the water department land, i.e. the fields down on West Street. I mean, that's water department land, and we spend more time on it than anyone, so. That
And leaving-
individual can have his opinions like anyone else, and that's what they are.
We also have an open space committee, who have been talking for a very, very long time about working on, access and signage
Right, and again,
trail
it's
maintenance, et
getting
cetera.
some momentum. We had, trail maps, and there's a bunch of things that just need to be pushed, and really, they are the role of the open space committee. We kind of typically get wrapped up in the hearings, and we don't have time to manage some of the things at that level. That's what these subcommittees are. That's why we have a Camp Dennis committee. That's why we have an open space committee and all these stewardship groups. I mean, that's really what they're supposed to do.
The Open Space Committee did get a very large chunk of money this past cycle, to do some investigation of trail connectivity, and I don't know if it's including trail mapping and things like that, but it was a
Right. I
large
mean,
chunk of money.
That was a project to look at all of the trails in these woods and try to figure out if you could connect them and look at what's needed to take them to the next step. So there is some action occurring there. It takes a lot of effort to get some of these things done.
I was just confirming that we don't have liability if the fire should happen and take out these homes and say, I told you guys, you didn't clean it out,
Well, the federal government tried managing by using some of these techniques too, and ended up starting some major forest fires by using techniques of clearing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah,
Starting secondary fires to stop the other ones, yeah.
So there's a number of different kinds of philosophies.
I can't even imagine trying to remove dead wood from a forest.
I
But
think
at
it's
the
a
same
good
time,
thing.
that's unhealthy.
It's the process to leave it there.
But
Well, they
Right.
they do they do that in
It is unhealthy,
Right.
but
they actually do stuff like that in Europe. But if you've ever been in European forests, they're like managed forests. The
They are.
trees are actually lined right up. You can look down a row of trees and see 500 yards.
Perfect.
And there's every row, and there's like no brush between them.
The only interesting thing about fires, though, is that it suppresses a lot of the invasives. And that's
Yes.
the one argument I've heard, that there's a positive aspect, at least in this area, to control burns.
That's true.
Because you'll get the invasives, which right now, bittersweet, Phragmites, all these things.
how about ticks? That you
Yeah.
could completely
Would stop- it
devastate
would
the
cut
tick
their
population
lifespan.
with a good controlled burn.
Good burn.
Oh, yeah.
We're
I'm
not
for
a good
that.
That's what the
community.
Indians used to do.
We're not a good community for controlled burns, though, just for the record.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that.
Not now.
No.
Not now.
I think the fire department might have a problem with that.
Training exercise.
What about the EPA? What about the air quality? That'd be terrible.
The other, for next meeting, I would like to have Steve schedule an executive session to talk about some pending litigation, and that's, we would have to do it under that guise, so just explain what's going on there.
We'll put that on the agenda.
I won't be at the next meeting.
Perfect.
Jeez,
We were
thank
gonna
you.
talk about you anyway.
We're gonna talk about some really important stuff.
Who cares, right?
I'll update you on what we talked about.
So if there's nothing else,
I just had a quick question.
Sure.
We had discussed previously about having sort of a checklist, for tree cutting, town,
With Peter Durkee.
yes,
Highway.
because of trees coming down without, notification or just a friendly, hey, this is going on. I just wondered where that was.
Needs to be sent out. I
Okay.
talked to him about it.
Okay.
I never,
No, but I wanted-
I never formalized it and had it
Okay.
sent and
I
him sign,
again,
just
I
some
think
acknowledgement of receipts.
I'd
and-
like a simple bulletized policy to him,
I'm good
10
at
steps,
simple bulletized.
1, 2, 3, 4. This is when you notify, this is when you don't notify. Here, tape it above your desk, tape
Thank
it
you for
above your
reminding me.
computer, put it on your
Flow
truck.
chart.
So it's you could do a flow chart, it'd be really easy. Use Microsoft,
But it's simple.
systems to do that, and put together a very simple flow chart,
You'll have it.
color coded and everything.
Thank you for reminding me, because it definitely fill out.
So it'd be very easy for him to do it. He wouldn't have to, spend a lot of time, reading through documents. He could just say, okay, call Steve. Make it simple.
He's tough to get a hold of right now.
Depends who you are.
Took me
I
3
called-
calls.
I called him once, and he picks up, and he's like,
Well, he
yeah,
won't
you
pick
can
up for you.
do this, this, and that. And he's like, I gotta go. The kids are on the Ferris wheel. He was in Florida on vacation with his children.
No
He picked up the phone and talked to me. I'm like, wow, that's dedication.
Well, you know his cell phone number, that's the first thing I know.
He'll sell it to you, Drew.
I'm not-
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close if there's nothing else.
We like it here.
Drew's like, I don't usually make motions, but I'm going to if no one else does. Yeah.
Somebody
I'll
wanna make a
motion to
Oh.
close.
Wow. Now that we gotta work on the second.
Second.
We have a motion, it's been seconded to close the hearings. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, abstaining. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.